To create lasting peace, we need a woman's voice and leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the KFOR Conference of Women, Peace and Security on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325. I am very honored to be part of this conference today. We are going to have a lot of very interesting and very important topics today exactly, and a lot of interesting and very important also participants. But to find out exactly what we are going to hear today and who is going to participate on this conference, I will welcome Major Elizabeth Schlocher, Chief Gender Advisor of KFOR. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
It's great to have you here, and I'm looking forward for this conference. I'm very curious to find out what we are going to talk today and who is actually going to participate on this conference. So let's start with the purpose of this conference today, please.
So the purpose of the conference is really to mark the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325. And Resolution 1325 is really the resolution on women, peace and security. And I guess most people know it has been adopted in October 2000. So this year, the year 2020, marks the 20th anniversary of this resolution. And that's why we are here, to mark this important resolution. And Resolution 1325 really covers two main key points. First of all, it stresses the disproportionate impact that conflict has on women and girls. And second, it stresses the participation of women in conflict resolution, peace building, and peacemaking. So today we're gonna look into the challenges and the progress that has been made in implementing this important resolution.
Now we are all of us curious to find out who will be the guest and what will be some of the topics that we will discuss today.
So there will actually be about 20 speakers in the conference, and they're going to talk about Resolution 1325. I just want to mention some of the speakers that we're going to hear today. We're super delighted to have Mrs. Claire Hutchinson. She is the NATO Secretary General's Special Representative on Women, Peace and Security. She will talk about her personal experiences in implementing the resolution. We're also super excited to hear a video message from Vjosa Osmani. She is the Speaker of the Kosovo Parliament. And of course it's a KFOR conference. We have KFOR Commander, Major General Michele Risi, with us, and he will talk about the link between Resolution 1325 and KFOR's mandate. Also, we are delighted to have Mrs. Edi Gusia with us. She's the Director of the Agency of Gender Equality. She will talk about some of the main achievements and future plans the Agency of Gender Equality is going to do. And since KFOR also works a lot with the Kosovo Security Force and the Kosovo Police, we are also excited to hear from Brigadier General Ielfetes Bahio, as well as Colonel Taibet Zanoli Brashori. She is from the KP, and they're going to talk about women in the Kosovo security organizations. Next speaker is also going to be Mrs. Adriana Hocic. She is the Executive Officer of the Mitrovica North Municipality. She has a lot of experience in human rights, and she will talk about the empowering and protecting of women in Mitrovica North and in Kosovo in general. And then, of course, the KFOR Gender Advisor Office works closely with UN Women, and we have the head of the UN Women Kosovo here joining us via VTC, Vlora Nushi, and she will talk about women's conditions in Kosovo. And of course, we also have a long cooperation with Ms. Iqbale Ragova. She is the Director of the Kosovo Women's Network. Kosovo Women's Network is a leader among civil society organizations in Kosovo, and she will share with us some of the achievements her organization has made over the last 20 years. So I'm looking forward to her contribution as well. Also, KFOR recently cooperated with the NGO YETA in Dejane. So we'll hear from Safete Gajaferi. She's the head of the organization, and she will talk about what help she offers to women and also the cooperation with KFOR. Also, KFOR works closely with the gender advisors from international organizations such as the UNMIC, the European Union Special Representative Office, OSCE, and ULEX. So these 4 representatives are going to talk about how they are implementing Resolution 1325. In addition, since it's a KFOR conference, we also have a lot of KFOR speakers here today. So we're going to hear from the Gender Advisor's Office, how we include a gender perspective in KFOR's operations. Then we have the chief of the CIMIC branch here. We have a female liaison monitoring team commander, as well as Radio KFOR, and the chief of the public affairs office. So there's going to be a lot of exciting speakers today, and I look forward to hearing them all.
The same comes from me. I cannot wait to hear all the discussions that we are going to have from the great participants of this conference. Elizabeth, let's talk a little bit about the context of United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325.
Yes, so really the foundation of working with a gender perspective really comes from the United Nations Security Council. And as I just mentioned, they implemented this important resolution in the year 2000. And one of the objectives of this resolution is to include a gender perspective into peace operations. And resolution really 1325 presents the basis of why NATO includes a gender perspective into its operations. So in the last 20 years, there has been a lot of progress made in integrating a gender perspective in civil and military peace operations. But also the concept is still new to many, and we'll look into this as well today.
Great. Can we talk a little bit about, now that we know that the context that we discussed already, can you tell us about why a military operation would concern itself with a gender perspective?
That's a very good question, yeah, and I get that question a lot. So we all know that men and women have different security needs. They're affected by armed conflict in different ways due to the different roles men and women have in society. And so let me just give you a few examples so it's clearer for the audience. So while the biggest security threat for men in war is basically to get killed, the biggest threat for women is rape or any forms of sexual violence. And because the roles of men and women are basically different. And they also face different security needs. So for instance, security for men sometimes means the absence of war, while security for women sometimes means freedom of movement or access to resources or access to education for kids. So, and really to enable a safe and secure environment, we need to identify and look into those different needs in order to provide a safe and secure environment and to have a better understanding of the society as a whole.
Elizabeth, we said that you work as a gender advisor to the commander of KFOR, but what does it mean to include a gender perspective? Yeah,
so there's really a strong link and practical application between Resolution 1325 and KFOR's mandate, and the KFOR commander will address that later on more. So KFOR's mandate is to continue to contribute a safe and secure environment for all people in Kosovo. And that's why it's really crucial to include different voices, to listen to everybody, to talk to men, women, boys, and girls to get a better perspective of what's going on.
Elizabeth, back to 2011, 2012, you had already this position. Can you tell us the difference between then and today?
Yes. So I was here in 2011 and 2012 for 1.5 years. And now I've been here during the COVID times, so it has its challenges, but also its rewards. While I was here in 2011, 2012, I was basically a one-woman office, but this definitely improved. So now we have an administrative assistant, Mrs. Fedora Berisha. She's awesome because she knows a lot about Kosovo. That helps a lot. And I also have a deputy now, which makes a big difference. So really, we have been able to implement a lot of the projects and really see them through completion. And I also want to mention that the support of the commander of KFOR really makes a big difference to the success of our office and where we have come so far.
Elizabeth, thank you very much, and really as I said, we are looking forward to see what exactly today can happen during this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a very special time now. We will have also Elizabeth at the end for the closing remarks. But now I'm delighted to present my next participant of this conference. And actually, I'm moving you from Pristina, Kosovo. We are moving to the NATO HQ in Brussels. I'm delighted to present Ms. Claire Hutchinson, NATO Secretary General Special Representative. Welcome.
Women and gentlemen everywhere, I'm so delighted I can join you, albeit virtually, but to be here. I am actually really delighted to be here. This is a special event.
Ms. Hutchinson, it's great to have you, and I am very looking forward to the answers that I will receive, and I'm pretty sure that all the audience is so curious to find out more details about the topics that we are having today. So can I please start can you tell us actually about role as a woman peace and security special representative to the NATO?
Yeah, absolutely. But first, I just want to do a quick shout out to thank also General Rizzi for the invitation, and to say to Elizabeth and Joanne, congratulations on all the work that you do. We are following you, and we're so proud of the work you're doing across KFOR in Kosovo, but the work that you're doing on implementing women, peace and security. So thank you from all of us here at headquarters. So, as you said, I'm the Secretary General Special Representative for Women, Peace and Security, but I'm also head of the Human Security Unit. And for NATO, Human Security was established in 2019 as a unit. And as you know, on work like cultural property protection, which Kosovo is one of the leaders of, KFOR is one of the leaders of, that is infused as well with a gender perspective. So we have a sort of a cross-cutting mandate here. NATO did a great job in 2012 by institutionalizing this post of special representative, because in NATO we recognize that at the highest level this work has to be done. And so the post in 2012 was institutionalized, and I stand on the shoulders of incredible women who came before me to do this work. But our role is to facilitate and translate. It's to facilitate the work at the political level, and to work to translate the principles of women, peace and security. We recognize that women, peace and security has to be at the highest level. And that's why we encourage all our commands and our gender advisors to be able to have access to command group and to be able to speak to the commander and to give that advice at that level. Because it's about accountability. It's about holding us accountable at the highest level. And we know that Resolution 1325 wasn't drafted with our alliance in mind, and it wasn't necessarily for the military initially. But what we've done is we've taken the principles of 1325, the principles of women, peace and security, and we have translated them that are fit for us, that work with us. And so what we have done, recognizing the essence of 1325, but being able to jump off by creating policies for ourselves. And in 2007, we endorsed our first policy, and that's been revised in 2018. And that's where we introduced our 3 principles of integration, inclusiveness, and integrity. And so that means we do things like support the inclusion of more women in our national militaries. We have right now collectively 12% across our NATO allies. Not bad, but not great. And so we are encouraging our allies to do more to get more women deployed and to get more women into the national forces. But while numbers are important, it's not the end all of equality. In fact, just having numbers does not bring equality. What we know we need to do is to do better at integration. And so we're trying to push integration into areas like cyber security and defense planning and defense investment, into public diplomacy, really into everything that we do. And then finally, we and my team have been working very hard last year to bring to fruition the policy on preventing and responding to sexual exploitation abuse. And this is our first policy that was endorsed by heads of state and government. And that sets the tone for us, integrity, that zero tolerance is key, and that we have to hold our standards up and we have to match those standards by advancing our commitment to preventing sexual exploitation and abuse.
Ms. Hutchinson, we know that you worked in Kosovo with the UNMIC back to early 2000s. But can you tell us something more about your work in Kosovo? And actually, I'm very curious to find out about your involvement in a United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325.
Yes, thank you. I got to be honest. Kosovo has a very special place in my heart. It not only was the place I traveled to after I did as part of my academic work, but it was my very first mission in the UN, and I learned a lot in Kosovo. In fact, I would say I learned everything I know about women, peace, and security from being in UNMIC, and I learned what not to do as well as what to do. That's an important lesson too. And I was also lucky enough to work with in the Office of the Prime Minister with the newly established, at that time, Agency for Gender Equality. And I see that the representatives there, and I hope Eddie would be there. And it's lovely to see all these names. I feel like I'm in a reunion. But one of what I learned from being in UNMIC, and I learned from my work very early on, was the mistakes that are made that we have to make sure we do not continue. And I was very well schooled by both the Kosovo Albanian, Kosovo Serbian women at the time I was there, especially on the idea that we should not make decisions for women without women, and that women are best placed to make the decisions for themselves, but also for communities, and they also need to be brought in on all levels of decision making. And that was something I learned very much in Kosovo. And the lessons from UNMIC have actually informed the UN over the years. UNMIC was one of the first places to have a gender advisor, and that became routine both for the UN but also for us in NATO, where we have gender advisors deployed in every mission and operation. Also the lessons of policy making. Kosovo had some of the most progressive policies at the time, but knowing that promulgating laws and policies and moving at the political level, you have to work with grassroots. You have to make sure that the women's voices are included and that they have to have an agreement of how to move these forward. And that consultation is one of the biggest takeaways. Giving women a platform from which to speak and have their voice heard is not only essential for women, peace and security, but it's essential as we do any work on policy, on security and defence. And I'm delighted to see the Global Open Days for Women, Peace and Security still take place in many missions, including in Kosovo and with UNMIC support. And I don't know if you know, but the genesis of the Open Days came from UNMIC, the work in Kosovo. And it was an idea that I had in 2010 to celebrate the 10th anniversary, because it was an experience for many years before when we were talking about standards for Kosovo, and I'm sure many in this event today will remember that. But the idea of women's engagement and not having women engaged. And so the idea was, let's find a platform where women can speak to the highest level of authority in conflict, post-conflict situations. So their voices and their concerns can always be present. Of course, the key is not to make it once a year. The key is always to have engagement. We worked with UNIFEM at the time when I was in peacekeeping to make this Open Days regular, but also to continue push. And I know that UNIFEM, UN Women now, continues to do that with UNMIC. But I also remember KFOR, and I remember watching KFOR because KFOR had long been engaged with women's civil society. I would say even more at some points, more than UNMIC at the time. And of course, I always remember Film City. But the experiences of having worked in Kosovo with UNMIC, having worked from the very beginning of my career in women, peace and security, informed everything I do today. And it is thanks to the women of civil society that I am able to try to unpack this agenda and to make it and inform ourselves here today in NATO of those experiences. And there are experiences that I hope will only grow, and we will get better at doing this in the future.
Ms. Hutchinson, can we talk more about main achievements on women, peace and security agenda, please?
Absolutely. And the fact is we have 20 years of this. This is amazing. And we wouldn't even be talking about women, peace and security in this area of security if it hadn't been for the resolution being adopted. And since then we have 10 collective resolutions. So we've moved the bar in terms of discussing women and women's situation in the dialogue on security and peace. And so that is an achievement in itself. The fact that we have, for us, NATO, we have more women and leadership in terms of defense ministers. We have more women engaged in our national militaries. But again, numbers is not the key. And it's about putting it into planning. And we're doing that. And we've seen more engagement on planning and processes, both at military, but as well as in the political. The expansion of the mandate itself, the expansion that it's now moved more broadly into looking at other areas of security, which are very important. How do we look at women, peace and security and countering terrorism, cybersecurity, risk of environmental degradation? All of that collectively, small arms, light weapons, have broadened up this mandate and broadened up the international community's recognition that we have to take women, peace and security seriously in the context of security. We've started to recognize early warning signs, rising tensions, the rejection of women's rights, and while not on women, peace and security, but looking at Beijing, women's rights are human rights. And that has been brought to the fore many times because of the mandate that we now have. The introduction of how we deal with sexual violence and conflict, as Resolution 1820 forwarded that. This is one of the biggest impediments to peace and security for women, and have that in the Security Council, have that actioned as well by NATO is incredible progress for us. And of course, this criticality of including women in civil society. That's important, and that should only get stronger and has, we've seen some traction. And then finally on national action plans, we're very proud that the first national action plan was a NATO ally, Denmark, and the most recent, we have Latvia. And so we are taking our role in addressing accountability through action plans. And we have seen that accountability in collective inter and intergovernmental plans and action plans and more defense planning for us. And also we've seen the inclusion of men, and that's important because they are partners in this. Because feminism is a security issue, and men and women together have to deal with this.
As we are marking UN Resolution 1325, the 20th anniversary, Ms. Hutchinson, can you tell us what are the crucial steps that should be implemented in a short and medium terms, of course, regarding the agenda of women, peace and security?
Yes, well, we've come far, but not far enough. And we have to really get our skates on because we're not going to wait another 20 years. So we need accountability. We don't need more action plans and we don't need more verbal commitment. We need action. As an international community, we need genuine, targeted, bold measures of accountability. We need to hold everyone accountable. I'm proud that yesterday here in headquarters NATO, we held our very first leadership task force, which was chaired by a Deputy Secretary General and all of NATO leadership here in Brussels at headquarters. And that was bringing to the fore our commitment to women, peace and security, because we want to take our responsibility for this. Implementation, I can't say it enough. We've got to implement quicker and better, and we don't need another resolution to do that. And I think for me, the more resolutions we keep adding, the more we take away from the focus of what we really need to do. We need to have partnerships. They're critical to advance this. Partnerships with men, partnerships between military and civilian, and partnerships with other international organizations, but most importantly, partnership with civil society. We have to have a collective commonality of purpose as we move this forward. And in civil society, I've mentioned, there's a cost to failing to protect women in armed conflict, and that cost is for us all. And it's a cost in our own communities, it's a cost in terms of everything we do. We have to get this right better. And we need to forward the advancement of women's interests. We have to have this constitution of women that come together that will drive this agenda. And we have to make sure we are doing this within the framework of new security emerging challenges, but in terms of advancing laws and constitutions, we have a lot more to do. We need to have the political will. They need funding, and civil society needs funding. And we need to recognize we have gone far, but it's only a step. If I could say, it's a small step for womankind. And we need to have a giant leap for womankind as we move forward.
Ms. Hutchinson, it was a great pleasure to have you, and thank you for sharing all these very important and very interesting topics with us. I hope next time we will have you here in Pristina.
I hope so. Thank you very much, and I wish you all a wonderful event. I'm looking forward to hearing the conversations, and I hope to see you physically when we can. Thank you very much all.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are actually coming back to Pristina from Brussels, where we had Claire Hutchinson with these very interesting and very important topics that all of us heard. But this is not just that, because we will talk about a lot of other discussions today. And I'm very honored to have and to welcome Commander of KFOR, Major General Michael Risi. Commander, welcome to the conference.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you.
How do you feel today?
It is a pleasure, it is an honor to be here to talk about such an important issue and how we have implemented such an issue in our mandate. It has been a privilege for me to continue something that we started many years ago, and I think that this event is a very evident demonstration on how much KFOR believes in women, peace and security.
Commander, can you tell us how important is the Women, Peace and Security mandate to the implementation of KFOR's mission?
Okay. This is, of course, a very key question. Let me say that, first of all, in the last 11 months of my command, I have been working to integrate the gender perspective in every single daily operation. And I would like to highlight some of the examples, and in this way to show how these examples have modified from the roots our modus operandi. So let me say that first, UN Security Council Resolution 1325 is a tool that we use to better implement KFOR's mandate, and it is a true force multiplier to achieve what has been directed by 1244. And I believe that there are three reasons that I could now table to you to explain why 1325 is key for our mandate. First, 1325 complements the overall missions mandate, which for us is the 1999-1244. We contribute to a safe and secure environment and freedom of movement to all citizens of Kosovo. And this is a precondition for the normalization of relationship between Kosovo and Serbia. But what we need to now introduce and understand that this achievement can and needs to be done regardless of the ethnicity and the religious beliefs. But 1325 says us that we need to do that regardless also of the different societal groups the people in Kosovo belong to. And now, of course, I'm referring to men, women, boys and girls. Second, 1325 allows us to adopt a comprehensive approach. And when I say that it enables KFOR to work more closely with UNMIC, EULEX and the OSCE, because 1325 is at the end shared by all our international partners. And so the 1325 becomes an opportunity to work more closely for the stabilization of Kosovo with our international partners. Third, it enables inclusiveness and integration. The approach that KFOR has undertaken has facilitated all the parties to take into account, regardless of the ethnicity, as I was saying, the younger, the older generations, men and women, boys and girls, irrespective again of the ethnic and the religious backgrounds. So these are three main reasons why we believe that 1325 is a force multiplier for KFOR.
Thank you, Commander. What is the practical reason for considering gender in relation to operational tasks?
Well, I believe that the practical reason for considering a gender perspective to operational purposes hinges on the realization, on the awareness that in peace support operations, like here in KFOR, the center of gravity of our efforts lies in the population. Therefore, it is mission essential to properly include all sectors of the population and not to exclude, for instance, one half of this population, and now I'm referring to women. So when we have to address the security needs and we have to encourage the support from all the components of the population, we need to be able to speak and to address the security grievances from all these components. I saw that women in Kosovo, but also in Afghanistan, where I served 3 tours of duty previously, throughout this region face very similar problems. Among others, I have to include, of course, healthcare, education, and sometimes a partial and a biased application of rule of law. As such, I have found many women here in Kosovo working across ethnic divides that have been unbridgeable for others, and these women have crossed this divide, and I think that as KFOR we have found ways, and we need to find ways to better help these women to do so. They have set to us a clear example of how an inclusive approach leads to better solutions and improves the chance for an inter-ethnic cooperation that is the key for solving all security issues in Kosovo. I see that the mission here in Kosovo today to grant security is very much tied and can be explained through a prism of 6 security challenges. First, and probably the most important, remains the inter-ethnic tensions. 2, the young institutions. 3, the unilateralism, the corruption and organized crimes. 5, radicalism, in particular religious radicalism. And 6, migration. So, in our mission to reduce the impact of these security challenges, and in particular inter-ethnic tensions and the young institutions and the problems that these young institutions are facing, we are conducting dedicated CIMI projects, and we are supporting locally and centrally institutions through the action of our liaison and monitoring teams. Just a couple of examples of CIMIC projects that are going in that direction. KFOR donated security cameras to a safe house that was built in Zubin Potok in the northern municipalities to make the house safer for women and children victims of the abuse. The safe house benefits Kosovo Albanian, Kosovo Serbs, Kosovo Turks, and so by addressing, let's say, a gender issue, we addressed a more, let's say, important for our mission issue, which is the tensions between among the different ethnic groups. Second, we also, for instance, donated some special equipment to an NGO, Autizimi in Pristina, which supports individuals affected by autism. And this is done, again, supporting all those people affected by autism, regardless of their ethnic group, their race, religion, gender, or nationality. Last, I want to mention the fact that very recently we donated a playground in a multi-ethnic village in Lebane. this village didn't have such a facility. Now children are playing, but with children, also mothers and fathers are meeting, and again, this becomes a meeting place for people irrespective of their ethnic group. So we are looking now at delivering with our CIMIC not just the traditional purposes, such as to support local authorities, to improve coexistence, to increase tolerance between the various ethnic groups. But now we are looking at delivering CIMIC projects that enhance women, peace and security. And I think this is a result, a tangible result of what this new perspective into peace support operation has brought about.
Congratulations on those very, very important donations that KFOR have made recently, Commander. We are marking 20th anniversary of United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325. We see a lot of progress in the last 2 decades, but there is still a lot of work to do. What will be your advice, actually, for the future of women, peace and security in relation to NATO operations?
Well, in essence, commanders need to believe that 1325 is essential and key for the accomplishment, for the success of the mission. So a supportive leadership is really very much needed. It is important that the gender advisor and commanders at any level, at operational, strategic, tactical level, work very much alongside. That they share the same vision and they implement together this vision. So, and this is why my gender advisor is not part of the staff, is part of my personal staff that advises me directly so that I can implement his advice through the staff of KFOR. So, as I was saying before, in the last 11 months, I have been working together with the Janet, and I have tried to include in every single strand of work the gender perspective. For instance, we have operational planning groups. We plan for long, medium, and short term. They are included in this operational planning group so that all the times that we identify strategies to address security issues, the gender perspective is taken into consideration. So another thing that I think another obstacle that we have to take into consideration, we have to overcome in the future is that gender is about not just female and women, but it's about everybody in the society. So men needs to be involved in the process. This will give credibility to the full implementation of 1325. I think that we must get rid of the perception that gender is only a women's issue. And this is why I would welcome and I will welcome the presence of men at any level in the Gender Advisor Office. Let me conclude by saying that these experiences on KFOR and supporting, let's say, 1325 in my tenure has been an incredibly enriching experience, and I think that it's going to be one of the lessons learned that I will bring with me, how important it is to include 1325 if we want to be successful in any peace support operations, but I would say in any military operation. Thank you.
Commander, thank you very much for sharing all these topics with us. Thank you and congratulations actually on organizing this very important conference today.
Thank you very much, Amin, and thanks to Mrs. Hutchinson who really wanted to join us and to support this endeavor.
Commander, are you ready? We can, together with our audience, actually see and listen a very special message that we received from Ms. Vjosa Osmani, the Speaker of the Kosovo Parliament.
I am ready, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's go and see the message coming from Ms. Vjosa Osmani. And we are going back then to the studio.
A lot of space to act and improve our actions taken so far. Everything that has been achieved is indeed a result of such a cooperation model. involving the Parliament of the Republic of Kosovo, the Agency for Gender Equality, international organizations, civil society organizations, and the media. In particular, today I want to recognize the role of those who can be freely called champion women and girls, who with their example and based on their daily actions and everyday commitment have paved the way to realization of the expectations of Resolution 1325. We have to bear in mind that the cultural aspect and the dominance of patriarchy in our society are also reflected, unfortunately, in some policy making and in some institutional approaches to the implementation and fulfillment of obligations deriving from either domestic or international legislation. At the same time, the fact that the issue of women's empowerment in general is still considered by some as a separate agenda and not an integral part of any institutional initiative or engagement remains profoundly problematic. Integration of women and girls in all peace processes is certainly the key objective of this resolution. However, we can achieve this when we guarantee equality in all areas. Undoubtedly, however, commitment and progress have been noticed since the adoption of Resolution 1325 in the role of political elites as well. But it is clear that there are delays in this regard in some of the most important processes in the country, such as the Kosovo-Serbia dialogue. In accordance with this resolution, women should be directly and fully involved in the dialogue, as well as constantly consulted, and this should be done both at the political level and with the citizens themselves. Speaking of the dialogue, for all women in Kosovo, an important aspect is the clarification of the fate of the missing persons and ending the practice of impunity for sexual violence during the war and other crimes that have been committed, which is exactly what is provided in Resolution 1325. It is quite obvious that there is still a lot of work to be done. It is by promoting and advocating for equality and justice that peace is possible and that objectives of Resolution 1325 can be naturally implemented and included in our actions, behavior, and thinking. Today, I want to make use of this opportunity to also encourage all women in Kosovo, especially the young girls, to pursue careers in security and peace studies and apply for jobs in these sectors. Don't you ever accept to be told that this is a man's job. This is our job. It is a collective effort for us to make sure to bring peace and sustain peace around the world. And no peace process can succeed when half of the society is left behind. It is by making our direct contribution to the security sector that we stand a chance to make our country and this world a better place and a safer place for all. Because, remember, when girls and women are present and their voices heard, the society is doing better as well. And I'm here to tell you that each and every one of you has the strength, the knowledge, the power, and the capacity to make it happen. So don't ever give up. We are all here to support you, and I will be cheering for you. On a final note, it has to be clear to all of us that when women make progress, whether through politics, media, civil society, or the security sector, this improves the prospect for peace and security everywhere. Ultimately, when we boost women's participation in peace and security, we attach a great importance and confirm our commitment to our common and generally improved well-being. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Vjosa Osmani, for this very special message. We are marking 20th anniversary of United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325. And I'm very honored to welcome my next guest, Her Excellency, Mrs. Atifete Jahjaga, former President of Kosovo. It's I'm delighted to have you here today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. It's really my pleasure to be here with you today.
We will have some interesting topics together during our conversation, but I will start with one general question, let's say like that. How have you seen the participation of women at the governmental and institutional progress over the last few years?
Yeah. Before I go to your question, because we are at the event which is organized by the NATO and the KFOR. Let me please express my deepest appreciation to the KFOR commander and to all the women and men who have been serving for those past 21 years to maintain peace and stability for all people of Kosovo. And now going back to your country, yes, definitely it has been some progress when we talk about the participation of the women into the government and into the institution. But absolutely, we still do have many of the challenges for the full empowerment of the women. Yes, we did have and we do have women into certain governmental and institutional level. We had women as the deputy prime ministers, as ministers, as the vice ministers, as the mayors of municipalities, as the judges, as the prosecutors. As a matter of fact, from the last parliamentary election, we have more than 30% of the women represented into the parliament from the direct vote of the people, which exceed about 30% of the quota, which was for the women representation. And for the first time in the history of the Kosovo, we have a woman that has been chosen as the president of the parliament. And so, telling you the truth, women have excelled much better than their male counterparts in no matter which position, governmental and institutional position they had. But unfortunately, the gender equality and women empowerment are not only achieved by certain numbers, of course, but we need to put much more efforts into the full empowerment of the women in order to create the necessary conditions for the women to exercise their rights and in order to exercise and to fight for their freedom in general. And I think that if we look the demographics on the proportion between the percentage of the women and men in Kosovo, it is a nonsense to exclude the women from the decision-making process and from the policy-making process. We need much more women into the decision-making process and the policy-making process. We have made some progress, baby steps, but we are still so far away from the ideal position where we should be.
This is a great remark, Ms. Atifeta Jahjaga. Thank you very much for this answer. Ladies and gentlemen, besides Her Excellence Ms. Atifeta Jahjaga, in the studio I will welcome also Ms. Edi Gusia. Thank you very much for coming. Very well known as a director of Agency for Gender Equality. I would actually like to make the same question to you from your point of view. Let's talk just about the participation of the women at the governmental and institutional level. How much it progressed over the last few years?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the invitation, and I want to congratulate all women and men in Kosovo that work on a daily basis on aiming to achieve peace, and without women participation in peace building processes, success cannot be achieved. If we see the statistics of the women participation in the public administration overall during the years, yes, the participation of women has increased steadily during the years. Unfortunately, women participation in the decision-making process is something that is till now not satisfactory at the level that our constitutions gives the space. Law on gender equality ask for 50% of representation of women in decision-making. The progress is very, how to say, the progress is small, but is going on the right direction.
Yeah.
The important thing is that we are very much more aware now about our rights overall in the public institutions. And unfortunately, what we see is that even in the institution on a daily basis, we have some cultural norms that are till now pending women to participate fully in decision-making process. And when we speak about the cultural norms, it comes again, the household obligation. Because of the gender stereotypes, the whole household obligation remain on women. We lack childcare facilities in order to women fully participate in the labor market. Again, here is a cultural norm that men of Kosovo do not participate a lot of, how to say, to the family obligation. And during the years, even that the statistics in education are very positive when we see a young generation of women. Unfortunately, young girls are, how to say, their skills in education do not go to the profiles that labor market asks such professions. So I think that in the future we should be much more focused in order to help young girls to go to the studies that in which direction is much easier to attend to the labor market and in the future to decision making and participation in decision making. The President Jahjaga revealed the issue of the women participation in the political life. So when you have the right legislation, when you have the political will, and when you take affirmative measure, because the quota is affirmative measure, you see that success will come. Last election, we have seen women have taken their seats. The half of women MPs entered with their votes in the parliament. They didn't enter with the quota. So affirmative measure jointly with all legal framework can bring results. And we should stick, how to say, to this. So to combine affirmative measure and to work with young generation of women to encourage them to take part in decision making.
So there is a hope. I see that there is a hope.
Definitely, definitely.
Your Excellency, can we talk about, it's a huge privilege to be the first female president of Kosovo. Can we talk more about this? How exactly, how was it for you? How was the feeling? And can you tell us more about this, please?
It was the greatest honor and the privilege of my life. The privilege that definitely came with a lot of responsibility and a huge responsibility.
It changed your life.
And
yes.
oh, absolutely, in many ways,
Yes.
in many ways. And my 5-year tenure as the President of the Republic of Kosovo has been quite tough, has been quite demanding, has been quite challenging, but at the same time has been extraordinary. And if I would be able to turn the time back, would I do these things differently? Yes. Would I avoid some of the mistakes to change the things for the better? Absolutely, I will do. But I really did my best in order to meet the expectation of the people of Kosovo, of the people of my country. I tried to promote modesty. I tried to learn from the mistake. I tried to spend the days away from my office and going out of the, not only outside, but particularly into the remote sites and talking to the people, particularly talking to the women, hearing their demands, listening to their concerns and their requirement. But at the same time, I also understood that that you need to often lead by an example, and you need to take it up to your task. But at the same time, I also learned that things can not be changed within the night. But it requires a lot of hard work, and it requires a lot of commitment, absolutely. And throughout my mandate, I tried to promote unity, and I tried to encourage the political dialogue and the consensus. But at the same time, I have learned that in some things, especially when you deal with the women empowerment issues, and something that was dear to my heart and was one of my main priorities as the President of Kosovo, dealing with the survivors of the sexual violence, dialogue and the consensus was an overdue, and it was just the time that you need to act it, and it was a matter of time to take the action. And so, to give a short answer to your question, being the first woman and the president of the Republic of Kosovo was the best service I could give to my country and to my people.
And you actually encourage all women that there is
Absolutely.
a hope actually in the future, so they can work, they can be, as you said, very committed, and they can achieve one day, why not maybe the same position?
Absolutely. We have shown that not only that we can do it, but we can do far better than the others.
Can we talk a little bit about Jahjaga Foundation? It's a very interesting one. Can you tell us more about that and tell us exactly what led you to start this organization?
Well, Anita, when I ended my mandate as the president, I was still very young. And telling you the truth, I was and I'm not ready to be retired in that sense. And beyond of my constitutional obligation, something that I considered the priority within my mandate as the head of state was the issue of the empowerment of the women and youth. Why? Because first of all, not only that we are dealing with over 50% of the population of Kosovo, which are the women, but we are also having the country which was the post-war, post-conflict, country in the transition, recently declared independence, that we have over 60% of the population which are under the age of the 30, which are the biggest treasure of our country is the human capital. And I really wanted to continue building beyond of my mandate as the president, and I strongly believe that sometimes our mandates go beyond of our official mandates, and I really wanted to establish a certain platform which is by creation the Jahjaga Foundation, to continue building in a type of the legacy that I established in the office as the president by empowering further the women and youth and extending that table of the decision making and giving more voice to the ones that didn't have so much of the voice in this past 2 or 3 decades, and that has been one way or the other way marginalized, sometimes unconsciously or consciously. And so that's why I want to continue using that moral authority that I built throughout my public service career, but especially in the office of the president, and giving back, continuing to giving back by investing on the women and youth of Kosovo.
Can we here just mention some specific activities or maybe achievements that helped, this foundation helped to the women of Kosovo?
Well, there has been a lot of activities. As a matter of fact, the Jahjaga Foundation is just being established little over 2 years ago, and within these 2 years, and one element that I really forgot to mention, that I do not run the Jahjaga Foundation because my purpose was not to run the organization. My purpose was to offer the platform to the young people together with other non-governmental organizations and the civil society, which, as a matter of fact, I'm more than grateful for everything what they have done to promote certain things for the people of Kosovo and the society in general. And so there is an excellent young group of people, women and some men, which are led by an excellent young lady, Brikina Avduli, as the executive director of the foundation. And so most of the project in this little over 2 years have been into the awareness raising, in capacity building, in the economic empowerment of women and youth, but also other marginalized groups in Kosovo. And we do have a lot of partners within Kosovo, but outside of Kosovo. And foundation covers 4 main fields, and I'm referring sometimes as the main pillar, which are not only specifics of Kosovo, but the entire region of the southeastern part of Europe, because our future lies within the EU integration and Euro-Atlantic integration. And if we do not invest in those pillars together or in the line with the governmental institution, I think the picture will not be completed. And so the first and second pillar are related to the women and youth, starting from their education, economic empowerment, and all the way down to the political participation, while the third and the fourth are more specific to the daily challenges that we are facing, like the security, tackling the violent extremism, tackling the organized crime, tackling the phenomenon of the corruption, and all the way down to the fourth pillar, which deals with the which deals with the reconciliation. And sometimes we politicians, we think that the political reconciliation, that's what we need. Actually, I am, as much as I work with the people and the grassroots, I see that it's people-to-people reconciliation. And it's something that we need to do more and more, not only in Kosovo, but in the region. And so these have been the matters that we have been dealing for this little over 2 years with the foundation.
Congratulations on this initiative.
Thank you.
I will go back to Ms. Edigusi, and we will talk a little bit about the agency. What are the main achievements and activities actually that have been implemented to the agency for the gender equality? And can you talk to us and tell us actually what are some of the agency's future plans and projects?
Agency this year marks 15 years of its existence, and our main achievements were drafting the public policies as a working platform for gender equality for the governmental institutions. So we had drafted, and it was very well implemented, the first Kosovo program for gender equality 2008-2013, and the second Kosovo program for gender equality 2020-2024. Under this roots of this Kosovo program for gender equality, we have found the legal basis to draft the first action plan for implementation of the resolution 1325, Women, Peace and Security. That was first action plan related to the women access to justice and women participation to the security issues overall. It was action plan 2013-2015, and it was a success story because for the first time it was a governmental action plan that was implemented in the level of activities of 79% of the level of activities, and more than half of the budget it came from the governmental budget. But the landmark of this action plan was the amendment of the law for the civil victims and veterans, where survivors of the sexual violence during the last war in Kosovo became part of this law. And from this we had the roots and legal basis to establish the commission for verification of the status of the survivor. And now we have near 800 cases of the survivors of the sexual violence that are benefiting small pensions from this process that came from this action plan. Actually, it was investment of last year of the government, 1.1 million in this issue, and this process will continue for the next period, and we closely collaborate with the Foundation of Ms. Atifete Jahjaga overall in raising awareness of this very important part of our history, and I think the first step of reconciliation and peace building. The agency, during its years of existence, was the leading force in drafting all the legal framework for treating the issue of domestic violence. We have drafted the law in 2010 for protection from domestic violence. We have drafted SOPs, that is standard procedures for treating the cases of domestic violence, and yearly we work on capacity building of all actors that treat the cases of domestic violence. Our cooperation with civil society organization is crucial with our partners in field of achieving gender equality, international partners. So we strongly, collaborate in order to mainstream gender in all public policies and new legislation that is drafted. So we do this on the daily basis. So there are some new instruments like gender budgeting that are being presented to the institutions, or gender impact assessment, that is another tool for achieving and mainstreaming gender in public policies and legal framework, and affirmative measure. As I mentioned in the beginning, in 2016, we have proposed to the government affirmative measure for registering the property in the name of the both spouses tax-free, because as you know, women in Kosovo tend not to inherit due to the cultural norm or even to participate and to ask their rights when it comes to property issues in marriage. So with this affirmative measure, in 2016, we had only 105 cases that registered the property in the name of the both spouses. With this affirmative measure that we are keeping to continue it every year, now we have more than 5,000 cases, couples that benefited from the registering of the property. So this is affirmative measure in order to make women aware that the property right, the inheritance rights are crucial in order to develop themselves, to fully participate to public and political life, and to benefit from the rights that Constitution of Kosovo recognize. So these are some activities that the agency has developed shortly in this period of years. What will be crucial for us in the future is, as I mentioned, the implementation of the Kosovo Program for Gender Equality. Its main platform. It's an umbrella for all institutions, but not only institutions, civil society organizations and donors, to coordinate and to try to work jointly in order that men and women benefit equally from public funds and this very important legal framework that gives the spaces to work and to benefit from funds.
Thank you very much. I will have a question. At the end, I will have the question for both of you. We are marking the 20th anniversary of United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325. But if there is one statement, or let's say maximum 2 sentences that we can give to Kosovo people, which one you will choose?
Well, we can keep it very short. I wish we could have more of the legally binding 1325 resolution. But the one thing that I would like from the people of Kosovo to be focused is at the human security. And we can do so by eliminating all of the gender imbalance, by creating the institutional culture, addressing the sexism, and to encourage the mentorship and women role models. That would be the way that we can achieve.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dusia.
I think that, as the agency have stated all the time, that peace and security in Kosovo cannot build without full participation of women and girls in all processes of negotiation, reconciliation, and peace building. And when I say women and girls, I mean women and girls from all ethnicities that live in Kosovo. I think that's a standard that should be as the crucial step if we want to have peace and security in Kosovo.
Thank you very much for being today and for sharing all these very important, interesting topics. I wish you all the best and I congratulate you on all your initiatives. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are marking 20th anniversary of United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325, and there is a moment where we will have another 2 participants, and we will welcome Brigadier General Irfet Espahiu from KSF and also Colonel Taibet Anoli Braishori, who is head of Association of Women in Kosovo Police. Ladies, good afternoon.
Greetings. Greetings, welcome. It is a pleasure for us to have you here as part of this conference. Thank you for the invitation and thank you for making me part of this online conference and for giving me the opportunity to present women in uniform as part of the KSF within this event that marks the 20th anniversary of United Nations Security Resolution 1325. And you have the warmest greetings from the KSF barracks in Ferizaj. It is a pleasure to have you here. And first of all, we want to talk about women's participation, first of all, and minorities in your organization. Thank you. The participation of minorities in the Kosovo Security Force is a constitutional right. and the Kosovo
Vetëm sa e ka inkurajuar pjesëmarrjen. Për më tepër, FSK është forcë multietnike, pa dallim race, gjinie apo religioni. Kriteret për të bërë pjesë e forcës sigurisë së Kosovës janë të njëjta për të gjitha palët, pa dallim etnie.
Këto momente mund të dhe të kima me qenë general brigadier gjatë karrierës suaj. Ladies, we will talk about interesting and very important topics and through VTCs a lot of interesting topics that our participants will share with us. We're waiting for the connection to come back from the Brigadier General of KSF, Irfete Spahiu, but also I want to remind you that you can watch us live on this moment, and of course if you have any question you can please share it with us on the Facebook page of KFOR, so we will be very happy.
We will have it very, very soon. In a few seconds, Brigadier General Spahiu, who will share with us exactly her achievements and challenges.
Welcome back, General Spahiu, again. Let's talk precisely what I already said about difficulties, challenges, and your achievements, your personal achievements. Can we have the mic on so that we can hear you better? This happens whenever we have live or online presentations. We can welcome something like that. So briefly, can you please tell us a bit more about your challenges, your obstacles, or any or your achievements that you have encountered during your career? My career in uniform is best described or identified with the stand-up development and the establishment of the security institutions after the war. Kosovo Protection Corps and the KSF in this regard. Since I am the very first flag officer throughout the ranks of the KSF, from the lowest level to the highest one, my rank as Brigadier General. Can you tell us a bit more about the implementation of... There were some challenges. Can you hear us? There are challenges, and we continue to have challenges, but with the fact itself that we are working hard to reach the percentage of women in uniform throughout all leadership and command levels, this is the best indicator that if we have implemented the UN resolution and all other applicable laws, the KSF has done a tangible job and achieved results. From my personal point of view, since I want to share it with our online audience, I would like to tell you that to achieve this, what I have achieved, I have always had the highest goal to achieve that goal. Whether I have deserved it, and to always challenge myself regarding tasks and mission that I was vested with. May I just briefly ask you something? Always taking into consideration our way ahead. Thank you very much for this question, General Spahiu. I wanted to relate because of some technical problems that we have here. We wanted to ask you and to listen you about your expectations, about your progress in the future, and the progress of the KSF in the future. KSF was and is in the second year of the comprehensive transition phase. This is a plan that is prepared in details, and it includes a 10-year period of time, based on which we have planned also the recruitment and training that will be held. Thank you very much for this answer. All this will help to achieve something. I still believe that we are encountering some technical problems during this presentation. For sure that there will be some images shared with you. Thank you very much for sharing your comments.
Welcome. My next guest, Mrs. Deputy Gender Advisor. Joanne, welcome. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you very much, Amina. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm pretty sure that people are very curious to hear also from your perspective some of the topics that we are going to discuss. Can you tell us how has the Gender Advisor Office actually progressed over the last 10 years?
So as Elizabeth said earlier on, the first gender appointment was in 2010, and we have progressed greatly since then. We have now 3 appointments in the headquarters, and I'm proud to say that KFOR is the only NATO mission that has 3 gender appointments. So we get to do a lot of work with 1325. So we have a civilian employee, Fatori. She has 20 years experience, and she has the corporate knowledge working in that position for the last 12 years. And my civilian position started in January. So now, as I said, because there's 3 of us, we can implement 1325 to the best of our ability. Also within the headquarters, we have 2 gender focal points, and they are actually male positions. And this is extremely important because, as that has been said earlier on, some people that aren't trained in gender think that it's only a women's issue. So it's very important that we have males that help assist us with our training so that we know that we're looking for the security needs of men, women, boys and girls in the society of Kosovo. The cultural advisor also is one of the gender focal points, and the culture works hand in hand with gender. So during our training, it's very important that the troops know about the history, the religious, the ethnic minorities, different religion groups in Kosovo, and the cultural norms, so that they know the roles of men and women in society. And also, KFOR has 3,500 troops, so in order to train all of the troops, we have gender focal points in Regional Command East and Regional Command West, and they help to ensure that a gender perspective is included in our operations on a daily, weekly and monthly basis.
John, can you tell us what is involved actually the role of the gender advisor, and how is United Nations Security Council Resolution 3025 implemented into KFOR operations?
So 1325 complements our mandate 1244, and it's not a standalone topic. So as the commander has already said, gender perspective is integrated from the top all the way down to the troops that work in the communities. It is at all levels, so we involve a gender perspective in the intelligence cell, in training, in all our operations throughout KFOR missions. Our main focus is with the LMTs because they're our connection to the communities. So although KFOR is 92% male dominated, we do a lot of training with them to make sure that they integrate with society, they speak to men, women, boys and girls, and that they know the security needs of women in particularly in Kosovo. They make sure that everyone has a voice. So this is extremely important, that we know that we talk to everyone to make sure the security needs of everyone in Kosovo's society. We provide protection and prevention to allow the institutions to empower and promote gender equality and participation at all levels in Kosovo.
John, can you tell us at the end of our conversation what about some of the future plans or maybe projects that you were involved, that you are going to be involved, or maybe we can talk about the recent projects that you were involved recently that you found, of course, particularly important?
Yes, so we have done an awful lot with the institutions, as I said. One of the main exercises we do every year is called Silver Saver. And this is where we work with the institutions on how to deal with crisis management. So if there was an earthquake or flooding, and we make sure that training is provided with the institutions so that a gender, all men, women, boys and girls, that their needs are incorporated into the planning. We also work very closely with a lot of the institutions that are here today, with the international organisations. And for me personally, I think the one that we did with the OICE, briefing secondary school students, and we spoke with students from the University of Pristina. And I just think it's very important that we know the security needs of the youth in Kosovo. And we did briefings on how to break gender stereotypes. And I think this is hugely important. I think the young people in Kosovo need to know that boys and girls have equal opportunities going forward in education and their careers into the future. And that gender-based violence is unacceptable. And also that men and women should both be involved in participating in order for peace negotiations and decisions to be made at the highest levels.
John, it was great to have you here today. Thank you very much for all these topics.
Thank you. And I'd just like to take this final opportunity to congratulate all the institutions and the Kosovo society. I think what they have achieved over the last 20 years has to be acknowledged, and they should be hugely proud. I think it is only 21 years since the war ended, and I think what has been done in such a short period of time is amazing. And I think the institutions, the NGOs and international organisations are working extremely hard to pave a better future for the young people in Kosovo.
Thank you very much. Thanks. What a great message at the end of our discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, we are continuing with our participants of this conference today, and I'm very honored to welcome Mrs. Adriana Hodžić, of course, Principal Executive Officer in the Municipality of North Mitrovica. Dobar dan, dobro nam došla. We are going to discuss a lot of topics also with you together, and everyone knows that you have a lot of experience in human rights with an emphasis on different groups in society. So can you give us more about exactly practical examples or activities that you did so far?
So thank you very much for the invitation, first of all. And another thing I have to underline is I really congratulate you for not giving up and organizing this event today. I think it is important because we are showing that it doesn't matter in which actually challenges are we facing as a society and as a world. We are not forgetting the topic that is really important for everybody and especially for us in Kosovo. What I can say is that in my experience, actually, I started working from 1999. My experience started with the NGO sector, with international non-governmental organizations. And through that experience, I was obliged to be in contact with the citizens, with the populations from all parts of Kosovo. One thing that I could really recognize is actually the way the women, girls especially, are treated in our society. And it's very important to see this progress. From humanitarian programs, we continued with economic development projects in which women were involved as well. And now lately, my focus is in local self-governance. So from this position, I think that it was the best possibility actually to give the adequate support to the woman. And it was not easy. I mentioned my experience from 1999 exactly because I wanted to underline how important it is to go step by step. That helped me to understand the challenges, and I function as an army. In fact, I always have a strategy, I always have a goal, and I always choose smart, dedicated women to help me in achieve all of these goals. If I did something good for our society, especially for women, because this is the part that I'm interested the most. I have a daughter. I am thinking about the future of my daughter as well. I couldn't do it alone. I couldn't do it without the support of strong and smart women who are dedicated to have this smart fight in order to achieve the ambient in which women can develop and can give their contribution for the society.
You just mentioned challenges. This is actually exactly what I wanted to ask you now. Let's talk about the biggest challenges that you had in the last 20 years in empowering and protecting women in the north of
well, you
Kosovo.
know, like every serious leader and a manager, I think that we have to make our priorities. So there are challenges that are not in my focus, like, you know, men being a challenge to me, that's not important. That doesn't exist. I focused on convincing other women to be really supportive to the women who are involved in different processes and join these women. I really cannot understand women who are not truly supportive to the other woman. We are talking a lot about the support, but I believe I faced in many other cases, not in my case, but in some other cases, that the support woman to woman is not in such a high level as it should. If it is more honest, if it is more concrete, I believe that we can achieve the results better.
Better results, of course.
Absolutely. We are all in the same mission. I'm not seeking for a support in which the woman will be supported in any case. We can make mistakes as well. But there are ways to criticize each other and have these critics to be used in a positive way so we improve. And we need really to stick together, be smart, to be honest, and we will achieve our goals. It's the role of women, not only in creating bridges of trust, but even in the prevention of the conflicts. It's very important. It's only the woman who can do this. No man can do it. I'm sorry to say this, but it is like that.
This could be like a final message to everyone who is watching us at the moment. Women should strongly support other women.
Absolutely. We should support each other. That's definitely the basis. Then we are strong.
Can you tell us what improvements have you seen and what progress do you feel needs to be achieved?
Well, in the local self-governance, in my latest work I'm doing for the almost 8 years now, or maybe a bit more, I try to create an institution where we will have involved women and men equally in all levels of our institution. And this is not something that is happening in the other municipalities. I think this example should be more vocal and should be used by the other institutions. And it doesn't matter is it municipal institution or any other institutions. But having women in all level of our leadership and all other levels of the institution was really a challenge. It was a challenge to convince women even to apply for certain positions and to encourage them, to convince them that they can do it. And actually in our institution, actually all difficult processes are passing through the burdens of women who are really creative, who are very dedicated, and I think that for the society this is a challenge.
Thank you very much for the
Thank
great conversation we had. I wish you all the best and a lot of success in your future plans.
All the best to you too. Thanks for the invitation.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are continuing actually with our upcoming guest that we are having, and I would like to welcome now Ms. Iqbal Rugova, who is Executive Director of Kosovo Women Network. Welcome to our conference today. Also, we have Ms. Vlora Nushi from UN Women of Kosovo. Can you hear us?
Yeah, very well. Hi.
Great. Welcome. Welcome. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Nice to be there.
May I actually make one question for both of you? And can we talk about the achievements of your organization that have been made over the last 20 years?
So, am I starting or Laura?
Please, Mrs. Rugova.
Sure. I mean, it's hard to mention all the achievements in all these 2 decades, but I really today want to talk about recognition of women's rights activists. And I want to start with how we, after the war, actually, we had to advocate for implementation of 1325, both to UNMIC and KFOR, because both of these institutions, after the war, they didn't recognize women's rights activists as important actors in Kosovo. So what we did, we formed a network together with other organizations that started also after the war, because we had a movement in the 90s as well. And we united voices, and together we advocated, both KFOR and UNMIC, to implement 1325. And that we did for almost 2 years, to be honest. But then after that, we started to move on with other women's politicians. Actually, this is like a summary of some achievement that has to do with the topic, which is women, peace, and security. So after the war, with the support of UNIFEM, we started working for 2 years, not 6 months, 2 years with women politicians to form action plan. In that time, it was hard work. We were thinking, what are the key problems in that time? But interesting, this plan became governmental plan in 2004 because it was really, government was impressed also with our work in that time. So after this plan, many other mechanisms, legal mechanisms were established, starting with law against domestic violence and many others. But this is a summary. I need to move on because I know time is essential. From 36 organizations that we had in 2000, we are now 153 organizations. Of course, as an achievement, I see inclusion of young activists, which is so important, and men in feminist movement in Kosovo. I need to mention also regional cooperation. really, we had regional cooperation in 90s, but we continued after the war, especially before the status of Kosovo. We had even coalition with Women in Black Network in Serbia. We formed the Women's Peace Coalition, and together we advocated to have women in negotiation team in that time, before the status of Kosovo. So many advocacy things are happening today, including GRB, including gender-based violence, together with the region. Of course, with support of ADA, EU, KTK, now also SIDA, and of course, UN Women at the present as well. But I need to also mention something about global inclusion of our organization, and especially now I'm speaking about me as a representative of Women's Network. I especially need to mention, because I realized that Claire didn't mention, that when NATO Office of Special Representative Office started, it was an advisory board of women's rights activists from all over the world. And we contributed for the action plan of NATO. We were, for 3 years, I was part of this advisory board. For 3 years, even though, as I said, it was not just Kosovo, of course, Kosovo representative, it was global. It was also important for us to continue today that networking and work towards pushing for implementation still today, because we don't see still where we want to be. But I will come to next question later, and I will explain what I mean, because there are two more pillars that I need to mention, which is security as well. But of course, after your question.
Can we hear the answer from Ms. Nushi on this question, please?
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation, and happy anniversary to all of you. It's a very important milestone. Actually, this year we are marking two important anniversaries. It's the Beijing platform's anniversary, the 25th anniversary, and also the resolution 1325. And we are all so much, hunting for results. Did we make a change? Is there a change? Is there improvement? What should we do? What should we not do anymore, etc., etc. In relation to UN Women's work in Kosovo, I mean, we are here since 1999, but I must say that when I read the question, actually, what were the main achievements of our organization, they're not only the achievements of our organization. Of course, we are here to support, but as Igor said, if it wasn't for women's organizations who did a lot, even before the conflict and then after, if it wasn't for the willingness of the institution, we wouldn't have all of these achievements together. So there are significant changes, there are significant improvements. And when we speak about the UN Women, of course, the ability to leverage its triple mandate, which is normative support, UN coordination and operational activities, it is itself an enabler of the success, and it's an asset for us. So from the UN Women's perspective, we have been particularly successful in strengthening the global frameworks and translating them into the local or regional standards. We called it localization of the international standards. And as I said, together with women's organization, we started, first of all, with mainstreaming gender in the security sector, which was a very important aspect and one of the pillars of the 1325. So the women's organizations were also involved in building the capacities of the security sector institutions such as Kosovo Police and Kosovo Protection Force, and mainstreaming gender in the institutions. And then AD also went through the establishment of the gender equality mechanisms, the first national action plan. Actually, I joined UNIFEM when that project started. It was a very interesting initiative where all actors, all the women's organizations, and all of my professors, I always like to call Igo and the senior leaders of the women's movement, my professors, came together to actually help and build the institutional mechanisms for gender equality. And then with regards to additional support, which is another very important achievement, I must say, with regards to the 1325 is also the recognition of the status of the CRSV survivors. We know that there was a long-term stigma surrounding the survivors, and as Madam Jahjaga already highlighted, it came as a joint initiative, of course led by Jahjaga as a former president of Kosovo, and together with women's organizations and the institutions to push for the recognition, for the status. And then together with Kosovo Women's Network, we worked with the microgrant scheme, which actually was aiming to economically empower the survivors so that when the commission of the recognition of the status of survivors would be established, they would have the courage and the financial means to actually apply for the reparation system. And then we supported the Kosovo institutions in establishing the commission, so with all the capacities, including the capacity building of the staff, etc. And then we work directly with the Special Prosecutor's Office and the Kosovo Police in helping them to identify, bringing the international expertise to help them identify the elements of the criminal elements of the sexual violence within the cases that they were reviewing. So this was a big project, one of the biggest projects actually funded by EU. That actually helped Kosovo to establish the institutional mechanism to address the conflict-related sexual violence. So these were only few of the achievements. Of course, we have worked a lot on empowerment of women in politics and leadership. We worked a lot in supporting establishing the regional mechanisms to promote leadership, peace, and mediation, like regional women's lobby, and then other local initiatives within Kosovo. It's important to mention also the cooperation with organizations in empowering now the young generations through the Peace Building Fund, the project that we are implementing jointly with UN, our sister agencies, and also implemented by the local women's organizations. And then when it comes to the UN family and the current situation with the COVID, we made sure that we are close to the institution, especially to the Agency for Gender Equality, to the shelters, to the service providers of the DV survivors. We know that there was an increase of up to 30% of the cases reported of domestic violence.
Ms. Nushi, can I a little bit interrupt you here, please? Thank you very much for the answer. We have a lot of participants who are also waiting for topics that we prepared today. So I will try to be short, and let's go to the topics that we prepared also for both of you. I would like now to continue with Ms. Rogova and Kosovo Women Network. Let's talk about some main security needs for women in Kosovo, and tell us please how have they changed and what does Kosovo Women Network do to improve women's security?
Again, it's we need a long time to talk about this, but I will go shortly. Security begins at home. And when we see women secure at their homes, then we know we achieved security. So far, still today, we see a lot of gender-based violence happening, not just at homes, but outside homes. Even worse, now we see femicide growing. And of course, that is globally happening, but of course in Kosovo as well. And my hope is now that with the Istanbul Convention, that we will have another big tool to fight this. We will have another big tool for government to do more on this. Women's rights organizations have done a lot, but it's government who should do more. And, but also another very important issue for the survivors of domestic violence, since we are here talking still about security, is the economic empowerment. And I really, really welcome the initiative of UN Women to start with the Ministry of Justice and Small-Scale Business Network in Kosovo to employ women who are survivors of domestic violence. And that is happening. And there are other opportunities, and we need to think This is, again, not the job of women's rights organizations. Government should concentrate more on employment, and government should find ways to promote employment, especially for women. But I need to go for security, for security,
Women's security,
another
yeah.
pillar, which is very important, of 1325 resolution is peace. I'm sorry, but there is no peace without justice. And 2 decades after the war, we still didn't see any justice in Kosovo from Serbia. We still didn't see any justice for survivors of sexual violence. We still didn't see any justice for survivors of massacres. We still didn't see any justice for families of missing people. There is 2 decades after, we still cannot say we have peace as we should have, as it should be, not just in Kosovo, but all over the world. So important sectors for peace and security, yes, it's the life of women as well. But for that, we need, again, support from government as well to do more on this. And 2, in the case of justice, we need not just to think about these agreements for mini Schengen. We need justice as an issue to be part of the dialogue, because then, only then, it will be first step towards peace.
How Kosovo Women Network helped to empower women. Can we talk a little bit about this, please?
Well, we had very much, in all these 2 decades, we saw that number 1 is important to empower women's rights organizations. And in that case, I'm saying we use many tools, not just to have regular meetings, but also to provide another tool, which is Women's Fund inside the network. Because as you can see, what was happening is that many, especially grassroots organizations, they were losing, they were closing doors of their organization because they had no access to donors. So Women's Fund really enabled many women's rights organizations who are members of network to open the door and to continue their work. So that is very important how we worked on that. Second, we worked in local and central level with women politicians. I totally agree about the issue of solidarity. Without solidarity between women, we cannot pretend that we are achieving some real gender equality in Kosovo, because that is so important. So to bring solidarity, you have to unite. And to unite in local level, we started Lobby for Gender Equality mechanism, which is in many municipalities, we didn't do like what OSCE was doing, just to have one forum to bring some members of assembly and some people who are officials for gender equality, but we enabled other actors in the municipality for empowerment of them, meaning we didn't do training, but we provided tools to empower them, to bring them, including, for example, many women, they never spoke a word in their local assembly, but we helped to bring the voices out, even in their local level.
Yes.
In central level, we had formed the Coalition for Gender Equality last year, together with Office of EU in Kosovo. But you know what happened? As you know, COVID really, and this year, was a hindrance for us to meet physically. Yeah. Because what we need for solidarity is physical meetings. Solidarity is not just online and camera and videos. Solidarity is being physical and touch the shoulder of each other and say, you did well. You did well. And to say this to each other, you did well, then we see moving forward. I strongly, and network also strongly believe in triangle. Triangle is, I keep saying this for 2 decades, but it's very important, triangle to succeed functioning, which is government, donors, and civil society. When this triangle works properly with coordination, when I say not just women's rights organizations, but also donors to coordinate and not to copy paste each other, not to compete with women's rights organizations, but to coordinate so we can together achieve gender equality in Kosovo. In government level, we work a lot closely with Agency for Gender Equality, and we always had to fight for this agency to exist where it is now, because there were so many attempts for this agency to move down, but we always fought to be in executive level. You know why? Because they belong there. Gender equality is not a pillar to be in some ministry. Gender equality has to be there where it is, executive. And to be there, we need all of us together, women's rights organizations, donors, to totally respect this agency and totally support, not just saying we have this project and we want to do it, but to say we have this idea of the project, can we see if we can do it together? Together, when I say, is government, civil society, donors, in this case, women's rights organizations.
Thank you very much for this answer. Can we talk a little bit about the second edition of the book of Kosovo Women Network? What are the main findings, please, shortly, and then we will move to Ms. Vlora Nushi.
Okay, well, I want to keep many secrets when we publish the book.
Okay, I understand that, but at least something special for this conference today.
I am very, very, very excited to share this. Many changes happened towards implementing of the resolution 1325. And for example, the first big change is KFOR. KFOR, how it was after the war, how it is now, it's amazing change. Of course, it also has to do with NATO. Many changes happened in decision-making. We heard earlier Vjosa Osmani. But Vjosa Osmani is not there because she was appointed by political leaders. No, she is there because voters voted her. And that's another achievement that happened towards implementation of 1325, meaning citizens are now, citizens don't look anymore just to vote men, but they look to vote women. So Vjosa is there with voters of people, not some leader. And what we don't see yet, which is unfortunate, but we will never stop to fight for this to happen, is political leaders. We still today see political leaders that when they come to power, yeah, they use women to come to power. Sorry, they use women to come to power, but when they come to power, then they say to women, okay, now bye, now it's our time. Let's unite now and share the power with each other. So that is what we need to see. Leaders who respect women as they are, not just because of number, not because of sex, but because of expertise and because of people, persona they are. So that is what we need to see, and we're not going to stop. But just to finish, we need to fight this together with the triangle, government, donors, and women's.
Thank you very much for sharing all these interesting topics with us today, and thank you for participating in our conference. We will move to Ms. Vlora Nushi. Can you just tell us, please, shortly, what improvements actually do you see for women in Kosovo?
Well, actually, some of the improvements were mentioned. I mean, the quota resulted with women elected with their own votes, actually not through the quota. We still are aiming to achieve the 50% as it is stated in the gender equality law. The gender equality law itself as it is another great achievement, but we need to work more on the implementation. We know the challenges with the election law, that it needs to be harmonized with the gender equality law so that we don't face every year before the election with the same question, should we have 30% women in the list or 50%, but once and for all solve this issue. And then we need to work a lot with young boys. Harmful masculinity is increasing a lot, especially now after the COVID. I mean, we need to bring them on board as the change makers. So to break all of these traditional views and gender roles, we see political parties that are promoting before the election only men. So we see the budgets within the political parties that are like almost 99% go for the promotion or the investing in the men within the political party. So we need to dismantle also this this strong network of men within political parties, so that women and young girls are empowered within the political parties and they become the next generation of leaders. We see that this strong masculinity within the political parties is reflecting now in the leadership, having no women in the peace talks. So it's a chain of obstacles that are preventing still women to be part of decision making, to be part of the peace talk, and this is what this is what is waiting for us to do more work.
Ms.
Nushi,
Ms. Nushi, can you tell us and can you share with us some of the future plans and projects of UN Women in Kosovo, please?
Yes, so UN Women in Kosovo remains committed to advance the Women, Peace and Security agenda, as we did so far. We will work a lot, especially now after the COVID, with our UN family in the recovery and through the recovery framework on the empowerment of women, on prevention of domestic violence, hopefully very soon with economic empowerment and working with perpetrators. And then this is more or less what we will do. Of course, the empowerment of women in political parties and in leadership, working together with women's organizations, and the main pillar, as Igor said, of our institutions, the Agency for Gender Equality, helping them also to implement the measure 10th of the recovery framework of the government of Kosovo.
Thank you very much, both of you, for being part of our conference today. Thank you for sharing all these topics, very important topics, and hope to see you in the next edition of the conference.
Thank you.
All the best. Ladies and gentlemen, I will welcome my next guest in the studio, and I will have a pleasure to talk with Ms. Safete Gacaferi from NGO Jeta.
Greetings and welcome. It is a pleasure to have you here in our studio and talk about the topics that you have prepared. Let us talk about the NGO Jeta, which has been established in 2005. What are the main activities of this organization? Mainly it is to offer assistance to women of all communities that live in Deccan. So we need to support them in all the fields that they need help. Can you please share some of the projects that you have accomplished or coordinated together with KFOR, and how did you help women in Deccan? Yes, as our own organization, we were established in 2005, and since that time we have constantly worked despite of problems or any difficulties. We have worked on volunteer basis to help women in our area, especially the requests that they have submitted to our NGO. We have started with some reading and writing activities, especially for Raya community. We have one female representative. It is a fund that has been provided by OSCE. There are some other projects. It is to eliminate negative phenomenon of the society, especially for narcotic substances, and then health education and health care. When I talk about health education, I mean that there are many women and girls that, although are in the houses, they have not advanced their education, and they need more. They need more raising their awareness, as well as to have a better health situation, to have better feeling. There are a lot of women that are not educated. There are, and the beekeeping activity is something that helped them. We have a lot of bees that they have developed it as a family business. So in a way they stayed in their homes, but they were able to decrease their economic difficulties. There are also some projects for milk processing, and also for traditional food. We have had some fairs, and there are some sponsors and donors that helped us, and we were able to promote these dishes that, and in a way we were able to, as I said before, to decrease their poor economic conditions in their respective homes. Many other projects that we have had as NGOs since 2005 are 40 in total. The most important ones were, of course they are all important, but I would like to highlight about the property passed to both spouses, then domestic violence, violence against women, because we try with our activities in education to eliminate this negative phenomenon, starting with KFOR, OSCE, the government of Kosovo, respective ministries. They have strongly supported us in this regard, and we have never ignored a particular group. We have included all the communities that live over. Our branches in Deccan, while our other offices are in that is being funded by the Ministry of Return and Communities, and we have a Bosnian community, and depending on projects, we never, as I said, we never ignore them. We have also some projects about empowering women, and we have included as a project throughout the municipality of Deccan and the schools over there. It was a project that we have received tangible results, and depending on the training they have underwent, we were able to provide those training courses for corruption. The last project that we have had was a very welcoming project for women in our area, because they never played soccer, and this is the very first time that we have provided this type of project. We went throughout the schools. In the beginning we encountered some problems because parents did not permit them, but in every school we were able to have soccer teams, female soccer teams. There are 12 in total. It is a project that was really warmly welcomed in our municipality. The last project that is again very much welcomed in our municipality, despite of communities that live over there, is KFOR projects for sewing and tailoring. KFOR's project. This is a very, very good project. They brought us 5 industrial machines and ironing machines, then fabric, and this fabric was welcomed because in the time of pandemic we have engaged all the women that are over there to produce masks, and we have started to distribute from the monastery of Deccan to support minorities first, starting with Romas, Ashkalis, then throughout all schools of Deccan from the 1st grade to the 5th grade, and we did that free of charge. And this is, we are very grateful to KFOR for providing and for enabling this project for us. I congratulate you for all these projects that you have accomplished so far. Of course, I wish you a lot of success to you and to your all members, and we invite all the communities to become part of your NGO and to be able to contribute. Thank you very much.
To have also NGO Yeta here and Mrs. Ataferi. Ladies and gentlemen, as I told you at the beginning, we will definitely have a lot of very interesting topics and very interesting and important participants of our conference in occasion of 20th anniversary of UN Security Council Resolution 1325. And now is the time to welcome Lieutenant Colonel Peter Söderlund, who is a CIMIC chief. Welcome to our studio.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here.
It's great to have you here. So we can first of all talk, why is it important actually to include a gender perspective in CIMIC projects?
Well, CIMIC projects, as a fundamental thing, they must be equal. we should not forget any part of the society, and knowing that, for example, if we divide people in different groups, even within these different ethnic groups, you could say that half of the population are women and girls, and the other half is boys and men. So we must understand that keeping kind of balance within this, and then understanding those who are in a weaker position must be then supported and promoted, and CIMIC is very keen on focusing on that.
What were some of the recent actually CIMIC projects that included a gender perspective?
Well, as I understood, we were assisting this Jahjaga women's organization, which in my opinion is a great example that we were actually helping with the equipment and funding of the equipment, but the women themselves took care of everything else, meaning that all the tailoring courses and how to collect people together without considering the background, who they are, where they come from, to help them get better opportunities to find a job, employment. So I would say this is a very good example how it works. Also, well, which was actually referred here earlier, that we also helped a safe house there in North, which means that there are women and children who've been abused, and try to protect them with helping with this kind of safe house protection. Also, that is, in my opinion, a good example where gender is present.
Very important, yes. So a gender perspective is not just about women, but can you give us an example of CIMIC projects that helped minorities and vulnerable groups? We can talk about a lot of examples,
yes,
and I'm pretty sure that you have them.
We have a lot of them, and
yes.
and luckily we have the liaison monitoring teams out there on the field, as I say, or we could say, and we've been helping schools with different kind of equipment, and we don't divide anybody. Basically, we are trying to focus, especially in the schools which have multi-ethnic pupils within, and the LMTs are very good at this, that they are cooperating with the local societies and their local communities, so we can find out where there's a need of the help, and then we focus on this. We've been handing out equipment for teaching, whiteboards, laptops, whatever is needed. The initiative comes from those who are in need.
In need, yes.
So then we start to process this and assist. And then we've been also helping with NGO Autismi, which deals with these autistic children, which are in great need of help. And once again, I have to say that what really pleases me is to see how the local community and the NGOs, they are working hard, and we are supporting what they are doing. So this is how I see it. And also now, since we have this COVID virus going around, our commanders stressed us to be reactive also. So we've been also handing out personal protective measures such as masks, gloves, liquids to disinfect your hands or whatever. And once again, we've been pointed out through LMTs and also from different NGOs and also other parts of the society, that where is the need, and we try to react. So what I'm saying that we are focusing to all the population. We don't want to divide, and we are not supposed to do that at all, but to support the weak part, and we don't then count if there are boys, girls, women, men, but everybody is in focus. But of course, if we can see that there is a real gap, that somebody is missing the equal opportunity, then we will focus on that also.
And at the end of our discussion, we can actually conclude, and one more time, that KFOR is always next to all people of Kosovo, no matter of their ethnic, nationality or gender.
That is our purpose, to be here, to support the whole society.
Thank you for your support, and thank you for being today with here.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my next guest is Second Lieutenant Teresa Smalls, LMT Kilo 21 RC East. It's great to have you here today.
Nice to be here, thank you.
Can you briefly describe your task as LMT commander? What led you to initiate an all-female team, and how was it perceived?
Yes, so for the liaison monitoring team, I am in charge of a gender mixed team. So we're not an all-female team to start with, and really we serve as a bridge between the general population and KFOR. So that is our job as the LMT. And then how we do that is we interact and meet with various people in our local assigned area. And those meetings vary from key leaders, healthcare providers, teachers, youth, just various people in the population. As far as initiating an all-female team, so, you know, as we interacted in our areas and met with people in the population, we noticed that females in the population gravitated towards our female soldiers specifically, even as they went out in their gender mixed teams. And then we also noticed just the lack of females in the workforce as well. And then, you know, we meet with the women's shelter quite a bit, and talking with them, we noticed just the clear issue with domestic violence as well. So overall, we noticed that women were treated differently. And, you know, how the all-female team was perceived was that overall it was accepted, and, you know, women wanted to talk to the all-female team specifically, which we were really surprised by. And then, you know, we've been told by just various women in the population that it's really empowering to them to see female soldiers in uniform out.
Can we talk a little bit about the advantages of female teams and mixed teams, actually?
Yes. So it's really good to have the gender mixed team. You know, like I said, I'm in charge of males and females, and, you know, we're able to engage with a variety of people in the population because of that, with the gender mixed team. And with the female team specifically, you know, it's easier for us as females to see those differences with the females in the population. So what we can do with that is actually teach our male soldiers to also see that difference and, you know, possibly address it or talk about it with some of the people that they're meeting with as well. And really the engagements that we have help bring awareness and, you know, provide education, and then again, like I mentioned before, empower other females in the population.
Can you share with all of us some of the projects or activities that your LMT did and where you included the gender perspective, please?
Yes, so some of the things that we've done, you know, we took the all-female team to the women's shelter in Jahjaga, and, you know, that was really successful, and we learned about some of the issues that they were facing. And what we did with that is we actually met with leaders in the municipality, and one of them happened to be the leader of the municipal assembly. She is the first female to hold her position, and so it's easier for us to relate on a lot of things. So we brought some of those issues before the municipality, and you know, they've been great about working with us and working with the shelter as well. And then working with the leader of the municipal assembly, we are actually planning future events for the LMT in that area to do other gender-related tasks. So not only just with women, but also with youth as well.
Thank you very much for being today with us and for sharing all these things.
Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are marking 20th anniversary of United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325, and it's time to welcome another three ladies on the VTC: Mrs. Javiera Thais Santa Cruz, Janad UNIC, Dr. Annette Faith Lihic, Political Advisor EU, Mrs. Biljana Nastovska, Janad OSC, and Mrs. Chiara Tagliani, Janad EULEX. Ladies, welcome to our conference.
Thank you. Morning. Thank you. Morning.
It's great to have you here. I'm looking forward to discuss also with you very interesting topics in the next couple of minutes. But at the beginning, I have one question for four of you. Can we talk a little bit, or can you share with us about the work that your organization does here in Kosovo? And could you please give me some practical examples, or maybe why not activities, that your organization has done to implement UN Resolution 1325? Can we start with Ms. Javiera Faiz Santa Cruz, maybe? May I please kindly ask you just to unmute?
Okay, sorry.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much.
So basically, within the scope of our work, we have many types of interventions to advance the women, peace and security agenda. So I'm going to try to give you a very brief overview in terms of what we do towards participation, protection and prevention. So for example, in the area of participation, as Claire Hutchinson had mentioned before, we every year have the Global Open Day on Women, Peace and Security. And the purpose of this event is to provide a platform for women from Kosovo to interact, address issues of common interest, advance agendas as well. So last year, for example, we had the topic of inclusive and responsive political dialogue processes. And before that, we had women's political participation in Kosovo. And usually these events are attended by an average of 200 persons. Just last month as well, we had an informal session of the UN Security Council where the implementation of the Youth, Peace and Security Agenda was discussed. UNMIC was there in addition to the mission in Colombia and Somalia. And we had two representatives from Kosovo there, from different ethnicities. So they had the opportunity to address the Security Council, to discuss the issues that are relevant to them as youth, as well as women empowerment. So those are fora that we provide to women here. But in addition to that, we also highlight women, peace and security advancements, the agenda, to the Security Council on the briefings on UNMIC, as well as the SRSG's address to the Security Council. So we constantly try to advocate for that and highlight the importance of this issue. In the area of protection, we have been involved in something that many others have mentioned before, which is the Subin Potok shelter. We had a project for 2 years where we constantly worked to try to make this happen. And this was very interesting because this was a trust building effort in all possible senses. So the 4 municipalities in the north agreed to work together towards this. And many missions and organizations in Kosovo also worked toward that. So as KFOR was mentioning, they were supportive, OSCE was supportive. We had many different cooperation from different sides. We also have supported the installment of legal aid centers. And one of the main topics there is gender-based violence. So women are provided counseling, legal counseling, I mean, advice, translation, etc., of everything that is involved in this type of process. In the area of prevention, we have several initiatives that are based on advocacy and awareness raising. So for example, we had a documentary produced in-house called Not Your Property. And this documentary highlighted the link between gender-based violence and property rights. So this was very interesting in highlighting the experience of women from different communities. And we have screened that widely in television, in separate municipalities where they have been debates around. And finally, because I imagine I'm going over my time, we had great advocacy in terms of the disproportionate impact of COVID in relation to gender-based violence. So with the UN family, we had a television campaign with representatives from different sectors of community expressing and explaining this relationship and giving links to how you can contact people to support you on this, as well as different pamphlets and posters for women to know which numbers and people to address.
Thank you very much for this answer. And as I said, the same question goes also to other ladies, and we will continue with Dr. Annette Faith Lihic. Could you please give us the answer on this question?
Thank you so much. I'm speaking here today not only on behalf of the USR, this is the European Union Special Representative, but also the EU office. And as you might know, these two structures are very closely linked, and also in-house we try to work together, including on gender equality issues. So one of the issues, and I want to stay a little bit in-house because that is really something what has been unique so far. So we have a gender advisor here, a fully dedicated gender advisor in the delegation, which is for political reason not yet a full-fledged delegation, but with this complicated structure which I have just described. But having a full-time gender advisor is very good. So we have very hard pushed for that, and also Brussels is very aware of it, and I think we're going here also in the right direction, and taking a little bit also Kosovo is a very good example. When it comes to what we have done a lot, I have to say, and I just wanted to give you very briefly some highlights. So we had in 2019 a whole series of gender talks where we invited women from different sectors. Religion was involved, then we had culture, we had economics, we had on elections. So on all these different topics, we were holding gender talks. Of course, we wanted that not only women, but women and men involved in the gender talks got in touch. We wanted to discuss these topics, but also we wanted to learn, because we have a lot of programs in-house. We have a lot of funding, so we also need to cross-check all this if this goes in the right direction. And that was just like one little tool of it. Out of that, and I'm just looking here at my desk, we have produced this little brochure. And of course, many of you also in this round I portrait here. So we have basically shown how many really fabulous women are in Kosovo. So that has been quite exciting. Also, I want to mention leadership project, which we had partially done together with the UN family. So that was Women in Politics, Confidence, Influence, and Effective Leadership. We also took these women to Brussels, so it was a study visit, which was also exciting. So they visited the different institutions. And we will continue. I also have maybe said that that project. So this is there's still a bit to come. And then of course we have, and this is a bit the other side of the house here. As I have mentioned already, we have a lot of funds for Kosovo still. So the EU funded a project called Strengthening Women's Participation in Politics. So that was a total amount of roughly 600,000 euros. It's ongoing. I should also say that it's until 2022. And also, I should say, again, coming to the EU office and contracts, there is technical assistance to better implement GAP by us. So it provides training and capacity building to all staff. So this is what we also have done. So as you can see, there is a lot. I'm sure I also have forgotten some of the issues what we have done, because from our side, there's one thing are the projects and the funding. The other is the political angle, but I also want to say that the in-house issues, and that we really mainstream gender equality in all our projects. This is also very crucial, and this is a lot of work.
Thank you very much for your answer. We will go to the same question now to hear, of course, and looking forward to hear the answer from Mrs. Biljana Nastovska, Janet of OSCE.
Hello, everyone. First
Hello.
of all, I want to extend my greetings to the Commander Rossi and his team, the gender advisors, and Vittore, of course, for this amazing conference. And it's an honor for me today to discuss this issue together with my sisters from other international organizations who are working together with me on coordinating all our efforts and showing that when women join voices, the echo is very strong. When it comes to the OSCE commitments and what we are doing here, as of 1st of July 1999, the OSCE Permanent Council adopted the Decision 305, setting up the OSCE mission in Kosovo and tasking us with a leading role in matters related to institutional and democracy building and human rights. And last year, the OSCE mission in Kosovo celebrated its 20th anniversary of its establishment. So it's natural that since the very first beginning, our mission was strongly committed to promotion and support over the implementation of the United Nations Security Council 1325. One of the OSCE commitments to the United Nations Women, Peace and Security Agenda is basically our Council Decision 1405, which obligates us to work strongly on the issue. Our mission has recognized that the importance of women's full and equal representation and participation in peace and security in government at all levels is crucial. We have been supporting the implementation of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda from different angles. For instance, gender and governments. OSCE was the first mission that has supported establishment of the Women Caucus in the Assembly of Kosovo. And we are proud to say that just 2 weeks ago, we were together with them 15 hours before they were ratifying the Istanbul Convention. And it's a big honor for the mission. Throughout the years, we have supported their work, and we are supporting also the local women caucuses. The mission continues supporting the institutions in all levels in developing gender-sensitive policies, gender-sensitive legislation, and gender-responsive budgeting. We are strongly dedicated to youth, and this is going to be my second part of the discussion. We are also working in the security sector. OSCE was the one that supported establishment of the Kosovo Academy for Public Safety. We have supporting it and the work of the Association of Women in Kosovo Police, providing specialized trainings for capacity development of women in security sector, which have resulted with higher representation of women in senior level in security sector. Working in education, interfaith dialogue, and we are also strongly dedicated to eradicating any form of gender-based and domestic violence. We are organizing trainings, specialized trainings on the issue with different sectors, including the sectors for security and justice. We are providing specialized support in terms of alignment of the international standards with the Kosovo legislation, and together with all other international organizations and women's rights organizations, we are every year joining 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Finally, but not least, we are engaged in activities by engaging men and boys in promotion of gender equality. We have been implementing awareness raisings, supporting civil society organizations that work with boys in schools related to gender equality and elimination of any form of gender discrimination. And we are proud to say the mission is dedicated in developing different service and evidence-based knowledge. Like, for instance, we have developed the Wellbeing and Safety Survey. We have developed the Kosovo study on Kosovo, men's attitudes and prejudice on a wide variety of topics related to gender equality. So this is basically in a nutshell our activity.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing with us all these details. We are continuing now the same question actually to Mrs. Chiara Tagliani.
Thank you, Mina. Thank you, Mina. And again, let me also congratulate all of you on this amazing event. Very briefly, I would like to stress out how since the deployment of the mission back in 2008, as many of you know, we have undergone several changes in our mandate. When we first were deployed, we operated under a three-component system: justice, police, and custom. We then got to operate from 2012 until 2018 under a double division structure, executive and strengthening. And as of 2018 and currently, we operate under a double pillar system, monitoring and operation. And I'm saying this because, of course, the change in the mandates have also impacted on the way we carried out our activities in the field of women, peace and security agenda. But of course, the underlying core principle is that the mission has always been committed to implementation of Resolution 1325 and its follow-up resolution. And but I also would like to stress out how our gender mainstreaming strategies, of course, developed throughout the years. So where we got now maybe was not the same at the beginning when the mission was initially developed and deployed. And I'm very confident to say that nowadays we operate through a much more operational gender responsive system. And just to give an example, we have been so far one of the very few CSDP missions being led by a woman. Now, more concretely of some practical example of our work, I would like to focus on two main areas, women empowerment and access to justice. So on the women empowerment side, as was also already mentioned by some other organizations earlier, we also contributed a lot, for example, to the creation of the Women Association within the Kosovo Correctional Service. We had a long-run project between 2016 and until last year, so 2019. We had several roundtable discussions on the topic of women empowerment and how to access professional development opportunities for women. We also contributed to and worked a lot on strategy together with local institutions on how to increase the number of female officers and also improve the position of female officers within the Kosovo Custom and Border Police. And we also gave our support to the creation of the Kosovo Police Women Association. And on the aspect of prevention and protection, as I mentioned before, we have been doing a lot of work on access to justice, and mainly the mission has been doing a continuous work on the field of gender-based violence, initially through its executive mandate and maybe more limited monitoring activities, and now through a really more consistent part of its monitoring activity. And I'm really happy that nowadays the mission has a specific thematic area on gender-based violence as an integral part of its mandate. Let me just cite a few examples. On domestic violence, back at the time, ULEX judges issued some landmark judgments between 2012 and 2013, creating a very strong court jurisprudence on the importance of state obligations to effectively protect women and children through effective deterrence and also through effective sanctioning in order to end impunity. Again, on the aspect of domestic violence, we have been sharing findings and recommendations from our reports with relevant institutions, Ministry of Justice, Kosovo Judicial Council, Kosovo Prosecutorial Council, and Kosovo Police. Training, we've also been involved a lot in training. The last one, for example, was this year, just before the pandemic erupted. We delivered a specialized training on standardized and effective response to domestic violence for frontline police officers. We've also contributed greatly to law drafting, as it was already mentioned before by some other organization. And an example of this was we were part of the working group on the criminal code, where then domestic violence was criminalized as a standalone criminal offense. And we've also been engaging a lot in awareness raising campaigns. It was mentioned before, we also are a lot involved in the 16 Days of Activism campaign, but also throughout the year through several awareness raising campaigns. And on this, let me also briefly mention our work on sexual violence cases. So to remain on the aspect of awareness raising campaigns, the Speak Up on Time campaign, which we launched last year in September, has been one of our major campaigns, and it's been the first very campaign of its own to address and to focus on the issue of preservation of biological evidence in sexual violence cases. Students from primary and secondary school all over Kosovo have been beneficiaries of lectures on what it is sexual violence and how it's important to preserve biological evidence in order to have then a proper an investigation and adjudication of cases. And just as the last point, also still on the issue of sexual violence, I know this has been issue of many discussion, but I really would like to reinstate how EULEX investigated, prosecuted, and adjudicated on the very first cases in Kosovo where rape was charged as a war crime. And we then continue, and we're continuing also to assist the prosecutorial authority and the verification commission on the need to identify survivors. And just last point was already mentioned, we also, because we all acknowledge the importance of working with youth and also with boys, the mission started to have a more consistent involvement in work with youth. Last year, we had a very important youth conference, and we also held several lectures at universities. And as I mentioned before, Speak Up on Time campaign tackled schools. So we're also getting more and more involved with youth. Thank you, Mina.
Thank you, Mrs. Chiara Tagliani, for those very interesting details you shared with us. I have a question for Mrs. Javiera Thais Santa Cruz. Could you please tell us what is next for UNMIC? How can the UN continue actually advancing the women, peace and security agenda?
Thank you. I think there are two aspects to UNMIC in the future. So one is the external one and one is the internal one. In terms of external aspects, we need to continue to build on partnerships with international organizations, local organizations. We need to continue to listen to the priorities that are established by women, by local organizations as well. We need to capitalize on the powerful women that are already there, full of tools and experience that need more platforms. We need to keep supporting women through COVID and after COVID. We need to include men in the things that we do. Internally, there's a lot of work we can do, and we are very lucky because our head of mission is a gender champion. So we have, for example, a gender framework strategy, which is for all the mission. And what we need to continue is to work on those activities that are basically setting priorities for the whole mission. But we also need to work in terms of numbers, both as UNMIC and as the UN as a whole. So our Secretary General has managed to have an equal number of women and men senior leaders. So we need to trickle down that and improve that. We have a gender parity plan within our mission, so we're trying to accomplish that. We're slowly getting there, slowly but surely. So I think, and in general, as a UN, we need to continue to find the synergies with the youth, peace and security portfolio. And we really need to continue focusing on how health crisis, conflict, natural disasters impact women disproportionately, and how we can adjust plans, support, intervene to help them go through this, because they do not have the same experiences as men. So we need to target our action into the different needs of the population. That would be from my side. Thank you.
I have a question now for political advisor in European Union Special Representative, Dr. Annette Faithel-Lihic. In your view, can you tell us what are the challenges that women in Kosovo are facing in relation to political representation?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, of course, then probably a Kosovo woman would be better placed to answer that. I'm an outsider, but I can tell you what I can observe, and also what the European Union is doing to help. I mean, of course, there is a component which is, so to say, cultural, or yeah, and we do not see that only in Kosovo, we see it in the Western Balkans. So there are certain stereotypes in place which might make it for women much harder to achieve certain things. It might be in politics, but also when it comes to economic issues. So this is something what is clearly there. And then there are also some male-controlled structures. This is very obvious, and also when we look into the politics, we have a few examples where it's different. Of course, you had Yosa Osmani as one of the speakers, but unfortunately, it's still a bit of an exception. We should not go by pure numbers, but I would say yes, and that was also mentioned. I don't want to repeat too much, but we have a quota system, but then there is the law on gender equality. There's always this debate, what should then prevail when it comes to the elections. I myself, I'm an election expert. I'm a fan of quota because it can help. It can be 30%, it can be 50%, whatever, but it helps women to get elected. But also we have seen many women who do not have to rely anymore on the quota system, which is good. However, there is still a lot to be done. And there's a last point, and that was also said many times, and this is again what I'm observing, not only in Kosovo, but also I have to say in my own country, and I'm coming from Germany, this whole pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, this of course makes a lot of things much more difficult. And women are suddenly faced with a lot of obstacles, and we thought it might have been forgotten already, and we have overcome these challenges, but suddenly they are there again. And I can tell you for myself, I'm also a mother, a very proud mom of a little girl, but of course it is challenging when suddenly the schools are closing. In the moment the schools are here open, so fingers crossed. And also on the job front, of course, in many sectors, jobs are not stable, jobs are not secure. We see many women working in this type of jobs, and it is immensely difficult. So basically what all these challenges, what we see anyhow that women are facing, again, not only in Kosovo, but also a lot here. I mean, we see that just with this COVID pandemic, we see it even more, and we're going basically backwards a little bit with this pandemic, and we're falling in all roles, or women have to do more and more and more and more, and are battling actually at all fronts. So this is something I think where also we here as internationals, when we see the situation in Kosovo, we can try to support in the economic sector, but also just really to encourage women that whatever they have achieved, not to give up, because in the moment the world is in a very difficult situation. So again, I mean, I don't know if I have answered your question, but I think again, I don't want to talk as, I mean, I'm not a Kosovo woman, but I could only tell you what I can observe as an international here. And here I also really want to underline that many things, many challenges exist in almost all places in the world for women. So yes, Kosovo has to do more. The people here can do more. The government, the women as such can do more. But this is not unique to Kosovo. I think we really see this in many places, even in places which have been much more advanced and now going a little bit backwards. So I think a lot more needs to be done.
Thank you very much. Actually, your answer was very helpful. Thank you for that. Mrs. Biljana Nastovska, if there is any aspect that it should be improved in Kosovo, according to you, what that aspect will be?
Thank you for that question. I wouldn't say that, I would answer this in a context not as a challenge, but as an opportunity more.
Okay.
As I previously mentioned, our mission has been strongly dedicated in implementing all aspects of the Women, Peace and Security agenda, addressing the impact on conflict on women and girls, as well as their crucial role that women should, and they are already playing in conflict prevention, resolution, and a dialogue. Our mission recognizes the importance of engaging youth in those processes as an effort to ensure a sustainable peace, not only in Kosovo, but in the entire region. Only through meaningful inclusion of youth in planning, program design, policy development, and decision-making processes, societies can ensure long-term conflict prevention, resolution, and recovery. So in that terms, since 2012, the OSCE mission supported Follow Us initiative, which brings together prominent women from Pristina and Belgrade to participate in women empowerment activities and dialogue. And this is something that we will continue doing it. Already from 2015 until this day, in cooperation with the OSCE mission in Serbia, the mission organized 5 editions of OSCE Dialogue Academy for young women, both from Pristina and Belgrade. And this will not stop. The mission will continue. We have provided an alumni network for former Dialogue Academy participants, which is the informal platform for exchange of knowledge and best practices in women leadership and empowerment among young women in the region. We are organizing different roundtables, workshops to raise awareness and promote gender equality. We believe that young women, alongside with women of all ages and young men, must be in the center of the sustainable peace agenda as the key partners in preventing conflict and building sustainable peace and inclusive societies. The mission will continue to support activities to empower young men and women, boys and girls, in order to achieve a transformative contribution to a more gender equal society in combination with the work done with institutions at all levels. So I would again reinforce investing in youth. It should be seen as an opportunity for building sustainable peace, not for only for Kosovo, but for the entire region here in the Balkans.
Great, thank you very much. Mrs. Chiara Tagliani, please, what are the main challenges that Kosovo faces with regard to access to justice for women victims of violence, and what role actually can EULEX still play in this?
Thank you, Mina. Very good question. I will start from what President Jahjaga already mentioned earlier, meaning Kosovo has indeed advanced legislative framework, but there is still a huge problem with implementation. And as also Annette mentioned before, at the end, the challenges recurring in Kosovo are also common to many of our countries back home. First of all, I would like to start from the need of raising awareness still. Cases are still a lot underreported. We have witnessed an increase in reporting of cases, especially in domestic violence, especially since 2017 onwards, but the whole matter is still extremely underreported. Certain matters are still a taboo: domestic violence, sexual violence offenses, and also, I would like to say how, although the trust of citizens in institutions has definitely improved also in the last year, but there is still a lot of trust missing. And the trust in institution is fundamental for the whole institutional chain and to effectively respond to offenses. And that's why then there is need to continue addressing the issue of awareness-raising campaigns, and EULEX, who are still there, we will continue to be there in assisting institutions and civil society in this important aspect. Trainings. One of the main challenges that Kosovo still faces in the access to justice issue is lack of professional training. And all of us who work in the justice and security sector know how training is essential for impartial, objective, and really competent performance of duties. And that's where we as EULEX, we're still committed to give our expertise through our capacity building training, and really just by sharing what we can bring and how, through our experience from back in our countries. And resources, lack of resources. How many times we heard the problem with financial sustainability of shelters? Or now, for example, the recent domestic violence database is still struggling for its financial sustainability. Resources are essential. We need to really, it's important that a more and more gender-responsive budgeting is put in place in order to ensure that quality services are offered to victims and to survivors. And in this also, we continue our support, and we will continue our support to institutions, especially through and by way of advocacy. And also something, it was mentioned already several times, COVID. I mean, what COVID also highlighted is the problem with data collection. I mean, this was already obvious. This came out even strongly during the COVID time, where there was a need to try to find out how COVID was impacting on certain reality, like, for example, domestic violence, sexual violence cases. And there we realized even more how the problem of with proper collection of data, and especially sexist aggravated data, is affecting the whole responsive system. And in this also the mission will continue to provide support through expertise and through its advocacies and through its recommendation. And but let me just conclude by saying something in light also of the recent inclusion of the Istanbul Convention in the Kosovo Constitution. I remember at the high-level meeting on the Istanbul Convention, it was mentioned something like, a woman is a woman forever, not a victim forever. And this was addressed to stress how we really, all of us, we need to change our approach to address violence against women to make it more empowerment-based. And I think this is very important for us, for local institutions and civil society, in which we all work towards this. Thank you, Mina.
Very much, Mrs. Chiara. And at the end of our discussion, I will have again one question to all of you ladies. If there would be one statement that you should give, you would give actually to the people of Kosovo on occasion of 20th anniversary of UN Resolution 1325, which statement that would be? We should start in the same way how we did from the beginning with Mrs. Javiera Thais Santa Cruz. Can you just please unmute? Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks.
In one statement, it would be, there is no sustainable peace and security without women.
Thank you very much. We will continue with Dr. Annette Faith-Lihic.
So my statement is, there's no sustainable peace and security without women.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Biljana Nastovska.
My statement would be echoing Javiera and Dr. Annette. There is no sustainable peace and security without women, no.
And we will conclude with Mrs. Chiara Tagliani, please.
Same for me, Amina. There is no sustainable peace and security without women. No way.
Thank you very much. It was great, and I'm very pleased to talk and to discuss all these topics with four of you, and I hope to see you soon physically too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we really had a lot of discussions today, and we are almost closing our event, our conference. There is a very special KFOR's asset and a medium in the last 21 years in Kosovo, and it is a voice of peace, tolerance and coexistence. It is a very important voice of everyone, and for 21 years the mission and a lot of activities have been implemented in a Radio KFOR. And I'm very pleased to share today this studio with my lovely colleague Dita. So both of us, we are coming from Radio KFOR, and we will talk exactly, Dita, welcome. Dita is the radio editor of Albanian section in Radio KFOR from 1999.
For everybody and all the organizers and participants on this event. They are doing a tremendous job on supporting women.
Thank you very much, and it's great to have you here. Dita, can we somehow together talk, first of all, about the mission of Radio KFOR?
The mission of Radio KFOR, we started in 1999. If anyone doesn't know, in Kosovo everybody knows, but abroad we started in 1999 with KFOR. So Radio KFOR waves are accepted with a great pleasure from all communities, as they are waves that transmit messages of peace, tolerance, education, culture, and also coexistence. Radio KFOR consists of high-skilled, also of staff consisting of Albanians and Serbians communities, both. So extremely good cooperation among us and among the communities in Radio KFOR. Also it transmitted through our waves of Radio KFOR, and that's why people have accepted the radio station as one of the best radio stations in Kosovo. The radio mission is to produce reliable content that informs, educates, also entertains, and engages all people in Kosovo to respect each other by sharing the values of common multi-ethnic goals. So above all that, our role is also to highlight the rise and the integration of marginalized groups in Kosovo, and to show also our commitment.
Dita, you were in charge of several campaigns which Radio KFOR did or implemented together with Janet's office. Can you talk us about this, and how did it implement the UN resolution 1325? Could you please tell us something more about this?
Yes, Radio KFOR supports the command of KFOR and also incredible work of its peacekeepers in Kosovo, as well as we have a great support of Janet's office. And also by integrating the women's peace and security gender, which for NATO and KFOR is also a priority. This year we are marking the 20th anniversary since the adoption of United Nations Security Council resolution on 1325, yes. And as a media, we have to make sure that women are heard and civil society women are heard, and that we integrate also their voices in Radio KFOR as well. So in order to support women beside the on-air news and also features and also the interviews that we have and social media that we are supporting the woman, we have also different campaigns. And our biggest campaign in supporting the woman, it was Successful Woman in Kosovo. So with this campaign, we tried to show to the youth to make their own, for example, we had the successful women like Atifete Jahjaga, the interviews, and also we had the world, also European champion in judoka, Mylinda Kelmendi. We had interviews with Dua Lipa. We had Claire Hutchinson in our interview as well on Successful Woman, just to set an example for the youth that they are the example to follow and to set the example for everyone in Kosovo.
And Radio KFOR has a lot of campaigns with the young people and children. Can you tell us, Dita, how does Radio KFOR encourage and empower young people in the society?
Yes, we had a lot of campaigns on supporting the youth and encouraging the youth. We had photo competition, we had tolerance competition, we had road shows all over Kosovo in places where the Albanian communities live, also in the Serbian communities, road shows, and just to support the youth. So with all these and also 24/7 hour program, we try to encourage and also empower the youth in the society in decision-making process. We honor the youth, their voice. We try to understand and implement their honest opinion and also ideas in order to make the community a better place for both young people and adults alike. So Radio KFOR is always trying to make the youth feel included and motivated, and that they should have a significant role as participants and also as leaders.
And these are just a few reasons why Radio KFOR is actually one of the most famous and popular voice of media, of course, in Kosovo, and we should keep doing that in the future. Dita, it was great to have you. Thank you for sharing all these informations, and for all this, and for our audience, actually, for the moment, who is watching us, don't forget to listen Radio KFOR on 90.2 and 96.6 FM. Dita, thank you very much, and I'm very honored to continue our conference with another very interesting personality. It's a Colonel Mario Reina, Chief of Public Affairs in KFOR. It's a big pleasure for me to have you here, and congratulations on all your initiatives and activities you did so far.
Thank you, Emina.
What we are going to do today, we will do something, you prepared some pictures, and I'm so curious to see all of them and to see the discussion that we are going to have. But Colonel Reina, you are Chief of Public Affairs in KFOR. Could we talk something more about examples of how the participation of women is presented in armed forces?
Well, actually, yeah, we are going to talk about pictures, and actually we will start from this picture, which is the cover of the special issue of this of our magazine, about 1325, about women, peace and security. And we had to actually make a choice. Which picture are we going to put on the cover? And it was not easy, because in the beginning, okay, let's show a woman in uniform, let's show that that women actually play a role in KFOR and in general in the armed forces. But a woman alone wouldn't probably be the best option, because anyway, women are a minority in most armed forces. In KFOR we have 8%, approximately 8% of women, and so they are not the majority. Showing a woman alone would be, I mean, not would be underrepresent the reality. And the reality is that the women we have, they play exactly the same roles. They take part in patrols, they carry weapons, they provide security, protection. So they do exactly what their male colleagues do. And the best option, of course, should have been to show a woman with her male colleagues doing exactly the same job. And we eventually picked this one. You see a servicewoman carrying the same weapon of his male colleagues. The atmosphere is nice. They are about to go out on patrol, so you can see that there is some, team that will actually go and perform their daily activity. She has this touch of feminine fashion. She's got these very small earrings that actually characterize her as a woman, but what you see actually is a soldier among soldiers, and that's the best maybe declination of participation. We have a second picture. This second picture is actually a woman carrying her weapon. She is actually on a checkpoint, and this picture is actually portraying her alone. As I said, that's a nice picture, this is meaningful, but this is not representing the real operation, because in a real operation, in a platoon of 30 people, you would have 1 or maximum 2 women. That's reality, and I think that we should show reality and not, of course, overload this, let's say, through the pictures, not overload the role and overrepresent the participation of women, which is important, but it makes sense when you see, like in the next picture, like when you see you will see now the next picture with a man and a woman, so it's still the same place, it's still the same environment, but now you see something that is more real. They are doing, as you can see, exactly the same job. One is watching on the left side, and the other one is covering another sector. They have exactly the same equipment, the same weapons, and that's an example of parity, not only participation, but you have parity and equality. That's why this has an added value. Then there is a third picture that is actually about a third picture, okay, which is about, again, participation of women, but not only participation of women in the armed forces, but also in the role that they are, the growing role of women. Now you see an officer who is presenting to a senior officer who is on the forefront of the picture. And actually, she's the commander of the large group that you see on the right. She's the commander, and she's reporting to the colonel. So that means that she is a senior officer, she is in command, and she actually has this symbolic, she's playing in this moment this symbolic gesture of saluting. So she is in charge for the whole troop that you see on the picture, and she is reporting to her superior. Earlier we had a brigadier general of the Kosovo security forces.
Yes.
In the Italian armed forces, the highest rank so far is colonel. In the next years we'll see the first generals. While in the US armed forces you have also 4-star generals. So that means that not all countries have started at the same time the process, but the process has only one end state, which will be having women also at the highest ranks in the armed forces. Then another picture. That's a picture that somehow may be in contrast with what I said. So now you see a woman greeting a mother with her child. This picture was taken here in Kosovo during an assistance project that was delivered. And actually, this picture tells a special story, if you want, because it tells about sometimes the exclusive role that women can play in delivering assistance. I cannot imagine the same picture taken with a man having the same, let's say, approach and the same interaction with a local woman with a child. There would be nothing wrong in it, but maybe a woman is in many occasions, especially when it's up to delivering aid to women in distress, to people that faced violence or faced huge difficulties. Maybe having a woman dealing with women can be the right key to have an effective interaction that may lead then to the improvement of their situation and of, I would say, peace and security in general. That's why in many occasions, in many teams, having, especially those who are liaising and are monitoring situations, I think that having a woman is a plus. So they can even bring more than what men can actually bring in an operation. And then we have, I don't know if it is the last one or we have another one. Okay, so we are back. Okay, let's go back to the first
picture. Yes.
Okay, let's go back to the first. It's a nice picture, and actually it was chosen as the cover of our magazine, and it was also chosen as the, let's say, the testimonial of our event. So it's a nice picture. It's a smiling picture. It's a real picture. So it was not built. And so in the end, we made some very informal focus groups, and everybody was happy with that. And we are happy that this will be the image that will fix our nice event of today. Thank you.
And we are looking forward to having in our hands the special edition KFOR Chronicle. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, Colonel Rena, thank you for sharing those very interesting pictures with all of us and all these details that maybe sometimes we cannot recognize when we just see the picture. Thanks a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that we are coming to the final moment of this conference, to the end. And again, with me in the studio is Major Elizabeth Schlecher, Chief Gender Advisor in KFOR. Elizabeth, how was the conference?
It was great, and I just wanted to do some final remarks before we end the conference. I wanted to thank everybody for contributing to the conference. Thank you for everything. I also wanted to say thank you, Mrs. Hutchinson, for all your support. And I also want to thank you, all the men and women who work tirelessly to implement Resolution 1325. I think we have seen some great success stories, and I know how hard it is to include a gender perspective and to work on integrating Resolution 1325. So thank you, everyone who is doing such a great work. And also, so we have heard about the challenges, the future aspirations, but most importantly also the progress that has been made. And sometimes we forget the progress that has been made, and I want to thank the Kosovo institutions. I want to congratulate the Kosovo institutions for all the achievements and the progress. Sometimes we overlook these things. I mean, I was the first time here in Kosovo in 2006, and now we have 2020. I mean, Kosovo has come a long way. And also, so the last thing that I wanted to say is it's also important that different organizations work together in order to implement Resolution 1325. And finally, what does it mean for KFOR? So KFOR will continue to implement Resolution 1325, will continue to contribute to a safe and secure environment, and include a gender perspective into all our daily operations, as the commander of KFOR initially highlighted in the morning session. So thank you, everyone. It was a great pleasure, and I look forward to working with you together and implementing Resolution 1325.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Thank you for everyone. It was also for me a big privilege to be a moderator of this very important KFOR event. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us from the beginning. We mark together 20th anniversary of United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325. See you soon in the next and upcoming KFOR activities. Stay safe.